Chapter 6:19. It was a hubbub of voices, the noise completely breaking the silence. Dong dong dong. A wave of hurried footsteps came out, and a large number of warriors rushed out from the various houses, all of them attacking Tang and Wu. So. The whistling sound of breaking through the air arrived in the blink of an eye, and one figure after another soared into the sky. Tang Zheng's footsteps suddenly stopped. He raised his head and looked at the sky in shock, only to see that there were many black dots in the sky, quickly flying over. Super soldier. This was a soldier that had been genetically modified by the dragon group. Tang Zheng was not unfamiliar with it, as he had encountered it many times before. But this time, the super soldier was obviously different. In the past, the super soldier had to rely on rocket boosters and other equipment to be able to fly. But this time, the other party did not carry such equipment. Instead, he had 2 wings on his back. Yes. Wings that were like flying birds. Even though Tang Zheng was experienced and knowledgeable, he was still shocked by this scene. Was he still human? Could it be that the Dragon Group's genetic modification project has made new progress, and that's why they were able to grow wings while they were still alive? This did not seem like a human, but more like a demonic beast's. Lu Qi, Earth and Sky, 2 lines of pincer attack, directly attacking the 2 of them. Marshall's reaction was not much different. He exclaimed, "What the hell is this? Don't think about it for now, let's get rid of them first." Tang Zheng shouted. He took out the War Soul sword. With a swoosh, the sword light shot out, interweaving into a biting cold sword net in front of his chest. Bang bang bang. The enemy's attack completely landed on the sword net. The sword net was annihilated, but Tang Zheng shot out like a bullet. This time, Tang Zheng did not use the heaven-flying immortal sword technique, but instead used the wind-chasing sword technique. The wind-chasing sword technique was all sharp sword moves, and did not require the consumption of innate qi. He did not know what other methods the other party had, so he tried his best not to consume his innate qi, in case of emergencies. Furthermore, the battle between Yi Dingdang and Marshall made Tang Zheng even more aware of the extraordinariness of the wind-chasing sword technique. Qi Yu's heart told him this set of sword techniques, so of course he couldn't waste it. He had to practice and use it as much as possible. Only then would he be able to unleash even more power through practice. Once the wind-chasing sword technique was unleashed, the fast, ruthless, and accurate sword moves were displayed without restraint. Battle Soul seemed to have grown eyes as it accurately attacked the enemy. A super warrior flapped his wings and swooped down. With a flash of sword light, half of his wings were sliced off, causing him to fall flat on his face and break his neck. Wu could not help but take another look at Tang Zheng. Her memories of these sword moves were too deep. He had almost suffered at the hands of Yi Dingdang because of this sword technique. However, after seeing Tang Zheng use the wind-chasing swordsmanship, she had a deeper understanding of it. Clearly, Tang Zheng's understanding of the sword Dao far surpassed Yi Dingdang's. Although he had practiced the wind-chasing sword technique less than Yi Dingdang, his understanding of the wind-chasing sword technique surpassed Yi Dingdang's. As a result, the wind-chasing sword technique shone brilliantly in Tang Zheng's hands. Although there were many enemies, Tang Zheng had the momentum of holding back 10,000 people. Not a single person was able to break through his defense and reach Marshall's side. "Humph, I'm not a 3-year-old child. Why would I need your protection?" Marshall snorted in dissatisfaction. She was ordered to protect Tang Zheng, so how could she hide behind him and be protected by him? With a wave of his hand, the roaring flame saber attacked a super warrior that was flying over with a wave of flames. The weapon in the hands of the super warrior was not a gun, but a large blade. The blade was wide and thick, and was extremely heavy. However, in the hands of the super warrior, it was no different from a normal sword. The super warrior abandoned firearms and other hot weapons and switched to cold weapons. This was not a regression, but an evolution. The Super Warrior project had made great progress, and this was all thanks to the flaming bird that the dragon group had captured alive. The researchers' experiment on the flaming bird had been a huge success. They extracted the genes of the flaming bird and modified them, combining them with the genes of the Super Warrior. After batch of live experiments, 80% of the failures were eliminated, and many new Super Warriors were cultivated. Of course, those who failed were destined to die. Although the death rate was very high, the new Super Warriors made Xing Feng ecstatic. The bodies of these Super Warriors had been strengthened once again, and they had actually grown wings and could fly freely. Wasn't this no different from a demon beast? In addition, their physical strength was also approaching that of a demon beast step by step. Whether it was their agility or their resistance to attacks, they had all improved by leaps and bounds. Xing Feng and the big shots behind him were all excited. If they had a group of super warriors that were comparable to demon beasts, then they would be in an invincible position. They could even summon the wind and rain, and no one would be able to truly threaten their existence. Therefore, not only were they not satisfied, they instead ordered the researchers to speed up the research, so that next time, they could transform even more powerful super warriors. As for this group of super warriors, Xing Feng secretly stationed many of them here. This was because he wanted to ensure that he had to know the results of the research on the Tree of Life as soon as possible. Xing Feng was not an idiot. From the various miracles after the appearance of the Tree of Life, he could determine the miraculous aspects of this towering tree. Especially when the researchers had initially determined that the Tree of Life might have the legendary miraculous effect of reviving the dead. Reviving the dead. This was something that only existed in myths and legends. If it could become a reality, Xing Feng did not dare to imagine what the consequences would be. This effect was countless times better than Tang Zheng's life-continuing pill. Why would he need to lower his head and beg others? Without a doubt, grasping this secret would be his greatest secret weapon. He would be able to control the lives of many people, and even become the ruler of this world. Therefore, he would definitely not allow others to touch it. Unknowingly, as Xing Feng came into contact with more and more things, his ambition was increasing exponentially. Martial and the super warriors fought together, and for a moment, it was difficult to determine the victor. These super warriors were actually equivalent to pre-celestial stage martial artists. For ordinary martial artists to cultivate to this level, it was definitely not something that could be done overnight. However, the dragon group could take a shortcut and mass-produce such strong martial artists. Tang Zheng and Martial immediately realized the seriousness of this matter. The dragon group wanted to completely break the original balance of the world. Especially when the other party had a mech in hand, after combining with the super warriors, their strength would greatly increase. Tang Zheng could not help but be worried. The National Security Bureau was an old organization, and its strength could not be underestimated. However, according to Su Yingtian, its development had almost stopped. Therefore, the boss behind Xing Feng used this as an excuse to establish the dragon group, and also gave a lot of preferential policies. Perhaps no one would have thought that the dragon group's establishment would be so good. It just so happened that all kinds of demonic beasts provided them with many possibilities that they did not dare to think of before. As a result, the dragon group's strength increased by leaps and bounds. This was also one of the reasons why Su Yingtian wanted to rope in Tang Zheng. The dragon group was like a wild horse that had broken free of its reins, exceeding everyone's imagination. Su Yingtian had to think of a way to contain it, otherwise, the National Security Bureau would be completely replaced by the dragon group one day. Su Yingtian should not know about these new super warriors. Otherwise, he would not be so calm. Although the super warriors were equivalent to pre-celestial stage martial artists, Tang Zheng was not someone to be trifled with. The power of the wind-chasing sword technique was fully displayed, and there were already a few super warriors' corpses on the ground. And the super warriors seemed to have realized the strength of the enemy. With a sharp sound, all the super warriors' attacks came to an abrupt halt. Marshall spent a lot of effort and finally cut off the enemy's neck. She saw the enemy retreat like a tide, facing her across the air. She looked at Tang Zheng and asked, "What are they doing?" Tang Zheng shook his head blankly. Hua! The super warriors retreated to the sides, opening up a path. A person flapped his wings and flew out from behind. Tang Zheng's pupils suddenly constricted as he stared at the other party. This person was quite different from the others. Although he also had 2 wings, his 2 eyes were like 2 balls of fire burning fiercely. Demonic. Moreover, the aura on his body was completely different from the others. It was even more powerful, causing one's heart to palpitate. Marshall's heart turned cold. She actually felt a sense of powerlessness. Although she had not made a move yet, she was sure that she was definitely not his match. The other party arrogantly raised his head and looked down at the 2 of them. He roared with a stern voice, "Who are you? You have eaten the guts of a leopard to dare trespass here?" Tang Zheng coldly snorted and said, "Where did this monster come from? How dare you show off like this? How dare you?" The other party berated, "I am the Fire King of the Dragon Group, not a monster." Fire King? The Fire King was one of the most successful experimental products of genetic modification. His strength surpassed that of ordinary super warriors and he was the leader of these super warriors. "Humph, after killing so many of our people, I want you to pay with your blood. Have a taste of my Fire King's power." Tang Zheng frowned and looked at the other party suspiciously. Although the other party's aura was not weak, Tang Zheng still believed that his strength surpassed his. After all, after the War Soul Sword had fused with the Sword Spirit, it had leveled up to a heaven-level magic treasure. With just his own strength, Tang Zheng was able to contend against a Grandmaster expert. Seeing that his enemy was indifferent, the Flame Emperor was enraged. He roared, "Everyone thinks that martial artists are the strongest in this world. Today, I will teach you a lesson. I will let you understand that you martial artists have fallen behind. The future of the world is ours. Our strength far surpasses you martial artists." Obviously, the Fire King did not recognize Tang Zheng's identity as a cultivator and treated him as a martial artist. Hearing this, Wu's veins twitched. When had a martial artist ever been looked down upon like this? Ever since the cultivators were expelled, the martial artists were the absolute powerhouses of this world. These monsters that were neither human nor demon actually dared to look down on martial artists. If they could tolerate it, what could they tolerate? Before Tang Zheng could do anything, Wu could not hold it in any longer and shouted loudly, "Then let's see how much weight you have." Shwa! Wherever the roaring flame saber passed, the air would evaporate like boiling water. It was as if the entire space was about to be split apart by this attack. Wu soared into the air and directly attacked the Fire King. Chapter 620. Marshall soared into the air with an imposing aura, like a sharp arrow piercing into the heavens. However, the Flame Emperor remained unmoved. Seeing that the roaring flame saber was about to hit him, he sneered disdainfully, and said, "It's just a small trick. I'll show you what fire is, and what raging flames are." The Flame Emperor suddenly crossed his hands, and 2 balls of flames appeared in his palms with a whoosh, leaping about in a strange manner. With a wave of his hand, 2 fireballs flew towards Wu like 2 scorching suns. Wu's nerves were extremely focused as she anticipated all sorts of counterattacks from the other party. However, when she saw the Fire King's counterattack with her own eyes, her eyes were still filled with shock. As soon as the fireball came into contact with her palms, it immediately wrapped around her fair palms like maggots in tarsal bones. Ah! Marshall let out an ear-piercing scream and fell from the sky. The flame was like a venomous snake. It immediately rushed towards her clothes, as if it wanted to swallow her whole body. Tang Zheng was also stunned by this scene. No wonder the other party was called the Flame King. He could actually control flames. This would have been impossible for a normal human, but in the hands of the Flame King, it was a piece of cake. When did super soldiers become so powerful? Tang Zheng did not have time to think about the details. He jumped up and caught Marshall, the flames immediately rushing towards his body. Humph! It was just a small trick. With a thought, Tang Zheng activated his true qi and completely protected his whole body. The flames were unable to burn his body. He circulated his energy and patted Wu's body a few times before finally extinguishing the flames. How are you? Marshall's clothes were tattered, and his originally fair skin was dyed with a layer of black. His hands were emitting white smoke, emitting a burnt smell. Your hand. Tang Zheng couldn't help but exclaim as he stared at her hand. The skin on her palms had been charred black, no longer as fair and tender as before. Her hands were ruined. But fortunately, before the other parts of his body could burn, the flames were extinguished by Tang Zheng. However, with both hands destroyed, it was like a rare painting that had a few stains on it. Its artistic quality was completely ruined. Her beauty would also be ruined by this pair of hands. Even though Tang Zheng would occasionally be unhappy with her, this burden, but after all, she had a physical relationship with her, so she was equivalent to his woman. How could he tolerate someone else hurting his woman? He abruptly raised his head and glared fiercely at the Fire King, who was grinning sinisterly in midair. Whoosh! A purple flame danced in Tang Zheng's eyes, looking extremely enchanting. I'm fine, you. Be careful. Marshall bit his lips, resisting the pain as he reminded him. If he dares to hurt you, I will make him pay 100 times over. Tang Zheng released Wu and walked towards Fire King step by step. Every time he took a step forward, the aura around his body would become stronger. He was accumulating power, and his aura was like a raging flame that was surging violently. The Flame Emperor's eyelids twitched. Clearly, he had also noticed this. He roared furiously, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Whoosh! With an explosive sound, the fireball pierced through the air and fell straight towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng raised his head and suddenly opened his mouth. With a low roar, the air trembled as the War Soul Sword slashed out. Boom! The ground seemed as if it was about to be split into two by this sword strike. The fireball split into two and turned into sparks. It did not harm Tang Zheng in the slightest. The War Soul Sword was like a hot knife through butter as it slashed towards the Fire King. Fire King snorted in disdain. He crossed his hands and another fireball appeared. This time, the fireball was even bigger and its color was even more fiery red. Clang! The War Soul Sword pierced into the fireball, but it did not explode. Huh, let's see what else you can do. Fire King laughed sinisterly. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a sinister sneer, and said, Is that so? Are you that confident? Humph, today I will let you experience what fire is. As soon as he finished speaking, specks of purple light lit up on the War Soul Sword. It was like a prairie fire that instantly covered the sword blade. What is this? Fire King's eyes revealed a trace of unnaturalness. True fire. Tang Zheng coldly spat out 2 words. With a boom, a purple light soared into the sky and turned into a purple flame. It was incomparably mysterious. After Tang Zheng cultivated the true fire, his biggest use was to refine pills and forge artifacts. He rarely used it to attack. After all, he had other magic treasures and great killing weapons like the 4 symbols venerable. However, seeing that the Fire King was using flames today, he was excited and used the true fire to fight. The purple true fire leaped up from the sword and quickly collided with the Fire King's fireball. There was no explosion, only a silent reaction. The true fire immediately corroded the fireball, and the fiery red fireball was immediately dyed with a layer of purple. Seeing that, the Fire King was shocked. He could feel a dangerous aura from the purple flame and exclaimed, "You're not a martial artist, you're a cultivator." Tang Zheng sneered, "It's too late to see it now." In an instant, the fireball turned completely purple, no different from the true fire. Hiss, a strange energy spread from the fireball into Tang Zheng's body along the War Soul Sword, following his meridians and quickly rushing into his mind. What's going on? Before Tang Zheng could understand what was going on, the flame had already reached the sea of consciousness in his brain and mixed into the true fire. There's no danger, and the energy contained in my true fire has clearly increased. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. This was a huge discovery. Ever since he started cultivating, his cultivation had increased rapidly, but the quality of his true fire had increased very slowly. Until today, he had only reached the 2nd grade of true fire, and was still a long way from the 6th grade of true fire. So his flames contained the energy I needed. The heavens were helping me. Tang Zheng's gaze immediately became passionate as he looked at the Fire King, like a starving person who had seen a peerless delicacy. The Fire King's heart jumped, and he had an ominous premonition. The fireball in his hand had turned purple, and the true fire was clearly spreading towards his body. He immediately withdrew his hand, spread his wings, and flew high, pulling away from Tang Zheng. The fireball became smaller and smaller, and finally, with a whoosh, it was retracted into Tang Zheng's palm. Tang Zheng felt a surge of energy surge into his sea of consciousness, and the flame in his sea of consciousness immediately jumped happily. It was as if it was urging Tang Zheng to absorb more energy. The Fire King had never seen his own fire control technique unable to harm his opponent in the slightest. This was really strange. Moreover, the other party's fire control technique was even better than his, especially that purple flame. It seemed to have a magical power, causing him to feel a sense of fear. He took a deep breath and suppressed the chaotic thoughts in his heart. He asked angrily, "Who exactly are you?" Tang Zheng. These two simple words caused the Fire King's expression to change drastically, and he subconsciously pulled away from Tang Zheng. This name was a nightmare for the Dragon Team. Ever since the Dragon Team was established, everything had always been smooth sailing. The only person they had suffered at the hands of was Tang Zheng. This name was like thunder to the members of the Dragon Team, and there was no one who did not know of it. Of course, they also hated Tang Zheng to the core, and wanted nothing more than to kill him with their own hands. The Fire King had once had this thought. If he could kill Tang Zheng, then his reputation would definitely soar in the Dragon Team, and he would be able to suppress the others and become the leader of the 4 Heavenly Kings. The 4 Heavenly Kings were the most powerful super warriors in the Dragon Team, and the Fire King was one of them. However, his strength was still not enough to sit on the throne of the 4 Heavenly Kings. However, he had been coveting this position for a long time. He forcefully suppressed the fear in his heart, and the urge to make a move grew stronger and stronger. After killing Tang Zheng, the head of the 4 Heavenly Kings will be mine. I must kill him. Although he is very strong, I am still the Fire King, so I might have a chance. His eyes gradually became fiery as he licked his lips and laughed sinisterly. "So you are Tang Zheng. Very good, very good. Today, I will take your head." Tang Zheng snorted angrily, but did not comment. Holding the sword in one hand, with the tip of his foot, he had already soared into the sky. The War Soul Sword pointed straight at the Fire King. "Come, die." The Fire King roared, his wings flapping violently, causing the air to fluctuate violently as heat waves overflowed into the sky. Hoo-hoo fireballs fell from the sky one after another, flapped by his wings, like meteorites falling from the sky. Tens of thousands of them densely packed together, attacking Tang Zheng indiscriminately. Tang Zheng had no way to avoid it. "Be careful." Wu's expression changed greatly. The power of the Fire King far exceeded her imagination. Seeing this scene, she could not help but shout out loud. Tang Zheng did not dodge needlessly. Moreover, he was in midair and had nowhere to hide. His speed did not decrease but instead increased. The surrounding air fluctuated violently as the dense chi increased greatly. It was as if clouds and mist had risen around his body. Boom! A purple light rushed out from his body and he was completely enveloped by the purple flames. At this moment, the true fire, the War Soul Sword, and the person had merged into one. The Fire King's expression also became unprecedentedly grim. He gritted his teeth and flapped his wings non-stop. The number of fireballs increased, and another huge fireball burned in his hands. Go to hell. This huge fireball left his hand and followed closely behind the other fireballs falling from the sky. One after the other, it was extremely sharp. Tang Zheng acted as if he did not see it. He only had one thought in his mind: charge. Charge forward with indomitable will. Boom! 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 Fireballs struck his body one after another, but his speed did not decrease in the slightest. When the fireballs collided with the true fire on the surface of his body, they immediately exploded, not harming Tang Zheng at all. In the blink of an eye, Tang Zheng was face to face with the huge fireball, but Tang Zheng's speed did not decrease in the slightest as he continued forward. Break! Following his loud roar, the War Soul Sword pierced through the fireball. The true fire immediately dyed the fireball purple and attached itself to the War Soul Sword. Immediately, the power of the War Soul Sword increased greatly, and his speed became even faster. Seeing that, the Fire King turned pale with fright. Only now did he know that he had greatly underestimated Tang Zheng's strength. Killing him was simply impossible. Run! This was the only thought in his mind. Just as this thought surfaced, the War Soul Sword rushed in front of him with an unparalleled momentum. His two wings immediately wrapped around himself. Puff! Chapter 621. The Flame Emperor stared at his chest in disbelief. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood as he stammered, "How is this possible?" After the dragon group had created the 4 heavenly kings, they had always kept them as secret weapons and had never revealed them to the outside world. This was the first time the 4 heavenly kings had appeared, and they were facing off against Tang Zheng. Just like that, Tang Zheng's sword pierced through the Flame Emperor's body. Pang pang. The two of them fell from the sky like giant boulders, kicking up a cloud of dust. The ground had already been charred black. The vegetation had disappeared, burned to a crisp by the falling fireball. The other two didn't dare to charge forward. The other super soldiers didn't have the Flame Emperor's strength, and they were all wary of Tang Zheng's reputation. Many of them were already retreating step by step. Tang Zheng stared at the Flame Emperor and said, "Nothing is impossible. Don't think that you're invincible just because you have wings and know how to play with fire. The dragon group won't let you off." The Flame Emperor roared hysterically in an attempt to scare Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng remained unmoved. "I've long since stopped hoping that the dragon group would let me off. Moreover, I never planned on letting the dragon group off." Even though Tang Zheng and Xing Feng were at peace for the time being, this was not the end of the story. Both sides understood that they were waiting for the most suitable opportunity to deal a fatal blow to the other. The Flame Emperor was in despair. The pain in his chest made him realize that his life was slowly slipping away. "It's all thanks to the energy in your flames that I've been saved." Tang Zheng smiled. The Flame Emperor didn't understand what he meant when he suddenly let out a miserable cry. "Ah! What are you doing?" Tang Zheng circulated his divine art. Waves of flame energy were sucked out of the Flame Emperor's body and directly into Tang Zheng's sea of consciousness. Whoosh whoosh. Within his sea of consciousness, the flames shot upward. In the blink of an eye, the color of the true fire became darker and darker. A surge of energy flooded Tang Zheng's sea of consciousness. An indescribable joy appeared in his eyes as he praised, "This is too useful." As soon as he finished speaking, it was like a whale sucking in water. The flame energy in the Fire King's body disappeared rapidly. The Flame Emperor roared loudly, but to no avail. When the other super warriors saw this, they screamed in fear and fled in all directions. Tang Zheng did not stop them. Although these people had the strength of a Xiantian lord and were a huge threat to ordinary people, they were not a threat to Tang Zheng. Not long after, all the super soldiers ran away. "Now do you understand what kind of motley crew your dragon group is?" Tang Zheng jokingly asked. The Flame King was already unable to speak. His entire body was trembling, and his face was ashen. Suddenly, his neck tilted, and he completely lost all signs of life. Tang Zheng took a deep breath and gathered all the energy within his sea of wisdom. Not only did the flames within his sea of wisdom pulsate violently, they also emitted crackling sounds. The quality of the true fire is about to level up. Tang Zheng's heart moved as if he had comprehended something. Sure enough, with an explosion, the true fire expanded in all directions with the momentum of a prairie fire. In the blink of an eye, it filled his sea of wisdom. His sea of wisdom turned into a sea of fire. One by one, the purple flames kept pulsating as if they were alive. The sea of wisdom changed rapidly. The flames that covered the sky quickly gathered and finally turned into a ball of flame. But the color turned dark purple. Third grade true fire. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. He accurately judged the quality of the true fire. After a series of changes, the quality of the true fire had finally made a qualitative leap. "Tang Zheng, what are you doing in a daze? Everyone has run away," Marshall loudly reminded. Tang Zheng seemed to wake up from a dream. He came back to his senses and looked around. Indeed, there was no one left. Not only the people of the dragon group, but even the researchers had all run away. "It's all so quiet now that they've all run away. It saves me the trouble of chasing them away one by one," Tang Zheng said with a smile. He glanced at the corpse of the Fire King under his feet and muttered to himself, "Xing Feng, you never thought that the Fire King you transformed would be taken advantage of by me. If I can absorb a little more of this flame's energy, then my true fire will definitely improve even more." His heart moved. No matter how the dragon group did all this, there was no doubt that this kind of technology falling into their hands would definitely bring more benefits than harm to him. If he could destroy the other party's transformation plan, then it would be the greatest good. However, he could only temporarily put this thought in his heart. Right now, he had to carry out the plan to deal with the ghost realm. But seeing the battered and exhausted Marshall, Tang Zheng stopped in his tracks and grabbed her arm. Marshall was shocked. When she reacted, she found that she had already fallen into Tang Zheng's demonic hands. Her heart tightened. What was he going to do? "Don't move. Let me take a look at your injuries," Tang Zheng said seriously. Marshall was anxious and said, "There's no need for you to look." It was because her hand had become too ugly. It was burned to a pulp by the fire and was beyond recognition. If not for her strong nerves, she would have already fainted from the pain. How could she still be so calm and collected? "You're injured. Don't try to be brave," Tang Zheng said angrily. "You're injured. Do you understand? It's so ugly. What's there to look at?" Marshall's heart was sad. Her pair of jade-like hands had become like this. After all, she was a girl. Her pursuit of beauty was not much different from other girls. Tang Zheng, however, did not hear the little girl's thoughts as he lightly touched his wound. Hiss! Marshall sucked in a breath of cold air and immediately clenched her teeth. She did not want to let Tang Zheng see her painful side. "I'm sorry." Tang Zheng apologized. Marshall was stunned for a moment. She almost forgot the pain and looked at Tang Zheng in a daze. In her impression, Tang Zheng had never said such words to her, nor was he so gentle to her. "I'm sorry." These 3 ordinary words were like a heavy hammer that struck her soft heart. "Bear with it. I'll help you check your injuries. Your injuries are a bit serious," Tang Zheng said softly. Marshall nodded dumbly, almost forgetting to think. Even if Tang Zheng touched her wound again, she did not feel anything. Fortunately, it was only the skin that was injured. The muscles inside were not injured. "I have some ointment here. I'll apply it to you first." Tang Zheng took out the ointment from his spatial ring and gently applied it to her. As soon as the ointment came into contact with the skin, a cool feeling went straight to the skin. Marshall couldn't help but let out a comfortable moan. Tang Zheng raised his head to take a look, causing her face to turn crimson red. She wished she could find a hole to hide in. How could she make such a sound in front of him? It was too shameful. If it was before, Tang Zheng would definitely tease her. But now that she was injured, he did not want to provoke her. "This is only a temporary treatment. I'll think of a way when we get back," Tang Zheng said. "Will it leave a scar?" Marshall hesitated for a moment before asking. "Maybe. Yes." Marshall's face immediately turned ashen. His eyes flashed with sadness and he no longer said anything. "Don't worry. Now that medicine is advanced, there are many ways to remove scars. It might not leave a scar," Tang Zheng advised. Marshall remained indifferent. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed the sorrow in his heart and said, "They've already run away. You should get down to business." Tang Zheng did not try to persuade him any further. He only silently noted down the matter of removing scars. In the future, he would definitely think of a way to solve this problem. The 2 of them came to the Tree of Life and looked up. They could not help but feel deeply shocked. The rich spirit energy made them feel refreshed. The exhaustion from the battle just now was swept away. "Really? So magical," Marshall praised. Tang Zheng laughed. "The magic of the Tree of Life is far more than that." "Really? What other magical aspects does it have?" Marshall asked curiously. Tang Zheng muttered to himself for a moment, then said, "It concerns the survival of this world." Marshall was shocked, and hesitated. "Really? Is it that powerful?" "Perhaps, it's even more powerful than what I know," Tang Zheng said solemnly. Marshall was skeptical. "Then what are you doing here?" "I want to reverse the fate of this world and prevent it from being destroyed." Marshall was dumbstruck. He stared at Tang Zheng as if he was looking at a madman. After confirming that he was not joking, he could not help but be even more speechless. "Don't talk nonsense." After a long while, she reprimanded him in displeasure. Tang Zheng smiled faintly and said, "I know this kind of thing is hard for you to believe, but I want to say that there is a huge crisis in our world. At any time, we can be destroyed and disappear from the universe. You must have read too many apocalyptic novels," Marshall said. "Hee, it doesn't matter if you don't believe me. I just need to do my own thing. But I want to tell you, if you want this world to survive, it has to fall on the Tree of Life." Seeing the suspicion in Marshall's eyes become even stronger, Tang Zheng shook his head and said, "Since you don't believe me, then there's no need for me to waste my saliva." Marshall really did not believe it. Although cultivators were mystical, she did not believe that it was that mystical. Furthermore, this tree was related to the survival of this world. It was too absurd. "I believe you." Suddenly, a voice came from behind the tree. "Who is it?" Tang Zheng and Marshall were shocked and shouted at the same time. The 2 of them looked at each other. Could it be that the people from the dragon group had not escaped and left behind some fish that had escaped the net? "Walk out slowly. Don't move, or else I won't be polite." Tang Zheng gripped the war soul sword tightly and said coldly. Killing intent was revealed, causing people to tremble in fear. He subconsciously stood in front of Marshall to protect her, indicating for her to retreat. Marshall's heart warmed as he thought to himself, "What's wrong with me today?" His insignificant actions were able to accurately hit the soft spot in my heart. Tang Zheng raised his spirit and prepared to attack. If the other party was an enemy, then the war soul sword in his hand would not hesitate to end the other party's life. However, from the sound of it, it was a woman. Just now, there did not seem to be any women among the super warriors of the dragon group. Then who was this person? If the other party was not a member of the dragon group, but was still able to hide here under the heavy protection of the dragon group, this made Tang Zheng not dare to underestimate him in the slightest. A series of light footsteps came from behind the tree, gradually revealing a figure. Tang Zheng was slightly startled. Chapter 622. This person finally walked in front of the two of them. She lifted her long hair, revealing a delicate and beautiful face. "It's you." Tang Zheng was shocked. The other party smiled and said, "It's me, Tang Zheng. Long time no see." This person was actually Yan Qingyi, the daughter of the head of the Yan family, Yan Padian. In the past, Yan Qingyi always wore a Taoist robe, looking fresh and refined. However, at this moment, she was wearing work clothes. Her appearance had changed so much that Tang Zheng almost did not recognize her. "Miss Yan, why are you here?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. The Yan family took good care of him, so naturally, his attitude towards Yan Qingyi was not bad either. Yan Qingyi turned her head and pointed at the Tree of Life. "I came for it." Last time, Yan Qingyi's prophecy had changed. She guessed that it was related to the appearance of the Tree of Life, so she came to the desert to investigate. But when he arrived, he realized that there was a big difference between what he had imagined. This place had been strictly guarded and protected. Fortunately, Yan Qingyi wasn't an ordinary person. In the end, she blended in with the researchers and investigated the Tree of Life with the others every day. Yan Qingyi was infatuated with Taoist classics. Although she was a weak woman without the strength to truss a chicken, her ability to comprehend things was far beyond that of ordinary people. When she got close to the Tree of Life, she had a special feeling, but she and the other staff members had no clue after dozens of days of research. All kinds of detection equipment were useless against it, but one thing was certain: this tree was full of vitality, as if it had a mysterious power. Coincidentally, one night, Yan Qingyi had a strange dream. She dreamt that a voice was whispering to her. Among them, this voice revealed a shocking secret. The Tree of Life possessed the resurrection technique. This dream came to an abrupt end, and she never had this dream again. However, this dream reminded her of a new research direction. After a period of painstaking research, she finally determined that if the vitality contained in this tree was integrated into a person's body, it could really bring the dead back to life. This was simply a miracle. Of course, Xing Feng also knew about this, so he urged the researchers to work overtime to achieve this technology as soon as possible. The life force contained within the Tree of Life was indeed exuberant, but there was no feasible way to channel this life force into a human body, let alone a dead person. The research had run aground. This news made Xing Feng furious. He repeatedly ordered that the results must be produced as soon as possible. But this kind of thing couldn't be rushed. He still hadn't made any breakthroughs in the past few days. Just now, Tang Zheng and Marshall's bargain had stunned these people, especially when Tang Zheng killed the Fire King in the end. This was even more so when they heard the news. They fled without a trace. Yan Qingyi recognized Tang Zheng. She didn't run away and deliberately hid. She came here to figure out the reason for the change in her divination technique. This was related to both Tang Zheng and the Tree of Life. Since Tang Zheng had come all the way here, there must be something important. How could she miss out on such a good show? She had eavesdropped on the conversation between Tang Zheng and Marshall, but when she heard that Tang Zheng wanted to use the Tree of Life to change the destiny of this world, and even those heroic words of saving this world, these words that seemed extremely absurd to Marshall, were like the sounds of nature to Yan Qingyi. She predicted that Tang Zheng would become the savior of this world. Although many of her previous predictions had come true, this prediction was too important. She couldn't help but doubt it occasionally. But after hearing Tang Zheng's words, her suspicions were immediately thrown beyond the clouds. Tang Zheng's words were exactly the same as her prophecy. This made her wild with joy, but then she became dejected. This was because this meant that this world was about to experience a calamity that would destroy the world. A calamity meant death. It was unknown how many people would lose their lives because of this. As an outsider, Yan Qingyi always had a compassionate heart. Naturally, she did not wish to see the scene of people being plunged into misery and suffering. Hearing that she had come for the Tree of Life, Tang Zheng and Marshall were both astonished. They asked curiously, "I'd like to hear the details." Yan Qingyi smiled mysteriously and said, "Let's listen to your story of saving the world first." "You really believe me?" Tang Zheng found it inconceivable. He had only met Yan Qingyi a few times, so why would she believe his absurd words? Wu also opened her eyes wide. Even someone like her, who had been with Tang Zheng for so long, was skeptical. Why would Yan Qingyi believe him? Yan Qingyi nodded solemnly, "Of course I believe you." "Why?" "Feeling." Yan Qingyi did not speak the truth. Being able to predict the future was very magical, but it was related to the person involved, so she would not tell the truth. Because, if the person involved knew about the future, it would lead to many variables. This was definitely not a good thing. Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. Believing him based on feelings was too arbitrary. Marshall raised her eyebrows, also feeling that she was being too childish. Monks believe that there is heaven's will in the unseen world. Since you are able to say such words, of course I will believe that this is heaven's will. Why would I doubt heaven's will? Yan Qingyi added. These words were too mysterious and did not have much persuasiveness. Tang Zheng muttered to himself for a moment, but did not pursue the matter. For someone who believed in him, he had to spend so much effort to doubt them. This was too hurtful. The Tree of Life is indeed related to the fate and survival of this world. However, the relationship is too complicated, involved too much, and too shocking. It is not suitable to be made public. Tang Zheng said mysteriously, like a fraud. Yan Qingyi's eyes lit up, and said, "I am a person who is good at keeping secrets." His words were firm, and his eyes were incomparably sincere as he stared at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze. Marshall shrugged, and said, "I'll just treat it as a story. It goes in one ear and out the other." Marshall had some understanding of Yan Qingyi. She was an anomaly among the few great families, and resolutely jumped out of the mortal world to become a monk. This kind of thing was not something an ordinary person could do. There were two possibilities for this kind of person. One was a fool, and the other was a peerlessly intelligent person. Yan Qingyi was definitely not the first type of person, so he could only be the second type of person. Thus, her every move had a deep meaning. Although Marshall was skeptical of Tang Zheng's words, seeing that Yan Qingyi believed in him so much, his heart began to waver. She wanted to hear what kind of shocking words Tang Zheng could say, and what kind of reaction Yan Qingyi would have. The two beauties were like two good students with a strong thirst for knowledge. Tang Zheng could not bear to refuse their passionate gazes. Marshall will definitely not speak nonsense, and Yan Qingyi. He looked at Yan Qingyi. To be honest, he did not understand her. But those clear-as-water eyes made Tang Zheng unable to have the slightest bit of doubt. The Yan family's power is enormous, and the business projects in my hands are gradually getting underway. If I were to fight alone, although I would be successful, would definitely take a lot of detours. If I could pull in the Yen family's help, it would definitely be like adding wings to a tiger. Tang Zheng's thoughts moved. The Yen family repeatedly expressed goodwill to him, but he responded very little. If he told Yan Qingyi the truth, it would definitely be able to further consolidate his relationship with the Yen family. Good, then listen carefully. Then, Marshall and Yan Qingyi's eyes widened little by little, and their small cherry mouths opened little by little. The expression in their eyes was already not enough to be described as incredible. In short, the two's worldview was on the verge of collapse. Even though Yan Qingyi had the ability to predict the future, after hearing this news, she was shocked speechless for a long time. Tang Zheng only roughly introduced the big world and the small world. The ghost realm and the human realm were each other's child worlds. The ghost realm was a big world, and the human realm was a small world. At any time, it could suffer a disaster, and even be absorbed by the ghost realm. Of course, he deliberately skipped his trip to the ghost realm. That was a private matter, and there was no need for everyone to know. Even so, these shocking remarks were almost contrary to the worldview of everyone in this world. Except for people like Tang Zheng, who had experienced countless strange things, everyone's reaction would be the same as theirs. Tang Zheng stopped and quietly looked at the two, waiting for them to digest the information. After a long time, Yan Qingyi moved her stiff neck and sighed. Although I am familiar with the Taoist classics, I have never found such an incredible thing in the classics. It turns out that we are so insignificant as the ants on the ground, as a grain of sand in the desert. Marshall took a deep breath and stared at Tang Zheng. She already believed what Tang Zheng said, and immediately felt a sense of defeat. It turned out that not only was her martial strength inferior to his, even her knowledge was 10,000 miles apart. His knowledge of the world made her feel ashamed. Hey, don't look at me like that. In fact, it sounds incredible, but in fact it's just that. Tang Zheng said as calmly as possible. Yan Qingyi seriously shook her head. How could it be that simple? This information is enough for me to digest for a long time. But this matter cannot be spread, otherwise it will definitely cause panic and make many people stir up trouble, which is definitely not a good thing. Tang Zheng nodded approvingly. Yan Qingyi was far-sighted. This news really could not be spread. In any case, no one will know about this from my mouth. I will rot it in my stomach. Marshall firmly said. In her heart, she silently made up her mind. Since she had already promised Tang Zheng, she could not even tell her master and master's wife. Yan Qingyi said, I will keep my promise. Yan family's promises are worth 1,000 gold. Tang Zheng gently smiled, I believe you, otherwise I would not tell you these things. Then what are you going to do next? I want to change the destiny of this world and absorb the energy of the ghost realm to replenish our world and increase our world's strength. Tang Zheng wanted to absorb the energy of the ghost realm. In addition to replenishing this world's energy, he also wanted to mess up the ghost realm so that the ghost realm would not have time to worry about him. He fell into the river Styx. Although the people of the ghost realm believed that he was dead, but in time, they might find out that he was still alive. In order to not let them find out, it was necessary to completely mess up the ghost realm so that they would not have time to look around. Then Tang Zheng would naturally be safe. Chapter 623. After hearing Tang Zheng's plan, Yan and Wu were surprised and asked, You can do that? How do we do it? Tang Zheng was confident and said, You can just watch from the side. The two of them quickly retreated to the side and silently looked at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng walked around the tree of life a few times, then lowered his head and thought, not saying a word. Yan Qingyi and Wu looked at each other, but they were smart enough not to disturb him. After a long time, he suddenly raised his head, his eyes became unusually bright, and muttered to himself, Yes, that's what I'll do. Back then, the five-clawed golden dragon had already told him the specific implementation method, but there were several limitations to this method, which was that it was not done overnight, but a step-by-step method. The Tree of Life could not absorb the energy of the ghost realm all at once, but it needed a long time to absorb it silently. At that time, even if the people of the ghost realm found out that the power of the ghost realm was being absorbed, there was nothing they could do. During such a long process, the Tree of Life could not be disturbed, otherwise, it would be a waste of effort. There was no doubt that although Tang Zheng temporarily occupied the Tree of Life, once he left, the dragon group would return like the tide. At that time, the dragon group's research on the Tree of Life would be even faster, and it was possible that they would not hesitate to hurt the Tree of Life. In order to preserve the Tree of Life intact, and in order to carry out the plan smoothly, he had to think of a foolproof plan. In the end, after thinking hard, he finally remembered the mysterious formation that had protected the witch tribe for thousands of years. The witch tribe was able to not be discovered by outsiders thanks to this formation, but this formation was too mysterious, and he did not know how to set it up. As long as I have a formation similar to this formation, I can protect the Tree of Life and not be disturbed by outsiders. Of course, he did not know this kind of formation, but there was a living fossil like Tian Chanzi. He was secretly happy, and quickly took out his phone, ready to contact Tian Chanzi. Damn, why is there no signal? He was dumbfounded, looking around. In the vast desert, there was not even a base station. How could there be a signal? What should I do? I'm at a loss. Tang Zheng, do you want to use the phone? Yan Qingyi hesitated for a moment and asked softly. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. There's no signal here. We can only use satellite phones here. Yan Qingyi took out a satellite phone and handed it to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was overjoyed and said, "You're the one who's fully prepared." He was simply too inexperienced in this aspect. This is a good thing. I don't have to worry about not having a signal no matter where I go. I should always prepare one in the future, Tang Zheng muttered to himself. Who is it? Tian Chanzi's vigilant voice rang out. Can't you recognize my voice? Tang Zheng, so it's you. You finally remembered me after hiding me in this godforsaken place. Huh? Why is there so much resentment? The last time we spoke, weren't you doing fine, as free and unfettered as an immortal? Tang Zheng suspiciously asked. Anyone who stays in a place for a long time will get sick of it. I've already helped the witch tribe gain a foothold in this place. When can I go back? Tang Zheng heard this and was slightly startled. Tian Chanzi's reaction was out of his expectations, but on second thought, it was understandable. Tian Chanzi was a person who liked freedom. Being trapped in that remote place by Tang Zheng was indeed not a good job. However, there was a reason for that. When his and Tian Chanzi's identities were exposed, the witch tribe appeared out of nowhere. The military's reaction was so fierce that in order to preserve their strength, Tang Zheng had no choice but to let Tian Chanzi lead the witch tribe into hiding. Time passed and the situation had changed dramatically. The government's attitude towards cultivators had changed, and the relationship between Tang Zheng and the National Security Bureau was in a honeymoon period. At this time, Tian Chanzi's return would not cause too much of a reaction. Moreover, the current situation was so grim. The Dragon Group, the Li Palace, and even the mysterious organization that had always been hiding behind them made Tang Zheng not dare to be careless. If Tian Chanzi returned to his side, he would be able to help him. Once the matters here are settled, I will personally come to see you. If there are no problems, you can come back. Tang Zheng was prepared to personally make a trip. The witch tribe had left their hometown for so long, so as the envoy, he should go and express his condolences. Tian Chanzi was overjoyed and said, Haha, then when will you come? Let's first solve the problem in front of us. Tian Chanzi, do you know of any array that can protect a towering tree? A towering tree? Tian Chanzi asked doubtfully, as he still did not know about the Tree of Life. Yes. What the hell are you doing? How did you get involved with trees? We'll talk about it in detail when we meet in the future. Tell me first, is there such a formation? Of course there is. Don't you know who I am? Tian Chanzi said proudly. Then hurry up and tell me. Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. As expected, he had found the right person. I really don't understand what you're doing. Listen up, do you still remember the drawing ground prison formation of the 100 Transformations Star Lord? Of course I remember. How could Tang Zheng forget that his group was completely imprisoned in this array, unable to move at all? It could be seen how powerful this array was. The array I told you about has the same effect as the drawing ground prison. The drawing ground prison used by the 100 Transformation Star Lord is more powerful than the average person's, and with your cultivation, it is impossible for you to achieve this effect. The other derivative array is quite suitable for you. Tian Chanzi laughed mysteriously. What array? 6 Directions 8 Desolation Array. Tang Zheng had never heard of this array before, so he asked curiously, 6 Directions 8 Desolation Array? Can this array really play a protective role? Of course. Kid, let me tell you, this is a large array, and it is not any weaker than the drawing ground prison formation. The drawing ground prison formation's power lies in the fact that it can be set up quickly. It can be set up in a single thought, and it does not require the help of external objects. But the 6 Directions 8 Desolation Array is completely different. What's different? It requires the help of external objects in order to truly display its power. What external objects? Things that can continuously provide energy for the array, such as the spirit stones you saw before. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes. He had already used up all the spirit stones for cultivation. At this critical moment, where could he find spirit stones? As if he knew what Tang Zheng was thinking, Tian Chanzi spoke first. I'm afraid you have already used up all your spirit stones, right? You already know. If you don't have spirit stones, you can also use other things to replace them, such as the Heaven and Earth Obsidian. Heaven and Earth Obsidian? Tang Zheng was shocked. He had spent a lot of effort to collect 66 pieces of Heaven and Earth Obsidian and put them in his sumra pouch as if they were treasures. This was the key to recasting the stairway to heaven. How could he casually use it? You can't bear to part with it? Tang Zheng was silent for a long time before he said, Is there no other way? The Heaven and Earth Obsidian contains more power than the spirit stones, so it will be more effective to set up an array with it. Moreover, after the array is activated, the Heaven and Earth Obsidian will be protected and will not be stolen. What are you afraid of? Is this array strong? Will it be broken through by others? The more energy supplied to the array, the more unbreakable it will be. Moreover, based on my experience, if you use all the Heaven and Earth Obsidian you collected in the Wizard Tribe Square to set up the array, then this 6 Directions 8 Desolation Array will be impregnable. It will be difficult for anyone in this world to shake it. Tian Chanzi said with certainty and confidence. Heaven Monk does not know that I have collected another batch of Heaven and Earth Profound Stone in the South Sea Dragon Palace, and now there are already 66 of them. If I were to use these 66 of them to set up a formation, then the power would definitely be even greater, and there would be no mistakes. Tang Zheng was moved and began to think. Well, Tian Chanzi, then let's use this 6 Directions 8 Desolation Array. Tell me, how do I set up the array? Tang Zheng made a decision. Hey, trust me, it will be foolproof. Listen carefully, the 6 directions in the 6 Directions 8 Desolation Array refers to the 4 directions of heaven and earth, which are up, down, left, right, front, and back. The 8 Desolation refers to the 8 directions of heaven and earth, which are east, south, west, north, southeast, northeast, northwest, and southwest. Once the 6 Directions 8 Desolation Array is activated, its protection will be all round and there will be no blind spots. Unless other people are particularly strong, it will be impossible to break the array. When Tang Zheng heard this, his confidence increased. Since that was the case, there was no need to hesitate. Tian Chanzi told Tang Zheng the detailed method of setting up the 6 directions 8 desolation array, and Tang Zheng kept it in mind. Tian Chanzi, I will come to you in a few days. I have to hang up first. Boy, don't fool me, or I will really wash my hands of your people, Tian Chanzi said. After hanging up, he returned the satellite phone to Yan Qingyi, only to see the 2 beauties staring at him. Was the person on the phone with you your powerful master? Yan Qingyi had seen Tian Chanzi once, so the memory was still fresh in her mind. However, she was quite surprised by the style of the conversation between the master and disciple. It was not like a master and disciple, but more like a close friend. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. The heaven monk was indeed his master to the outside world, so he nodded his head. Yan Qingyi was speechless. Your relationship is quite special. Marshall ignored this and asked directly, what is the 6 directions 8 desolation array, and what is its use? It's just a set of array. It can protect the tree of life from the evil hands of the dragon group and others. The tree of life is extremely important, there must not be any accidents. Tang Zheng said firmly. Is it really that powerful? Yan Qingyi did not understand martial arts, nor did she understand cultivators, so she asked. You will know in a while. After Tang Zheng finished speaking, he quickly walked around the tree trunk, but every once in a while, he would stop and casually throw something into the sand, disappearing without a trace. Yan Qingyi and Marshall stared at it, guessing that it must be the heaven and earth black stone he spoke of. They had never heard of this name before, so they did not know what kind of treasure it was. The 66 heaven and earth black stones were buried into the ground one by one according to the details of the array that Tian Chanzi had explained, replenishing the array's energy. Clap clap. Finally, Tang Zheng stopped, clapped his hands, and said with a mysterious smile, the great array has been completed. The 2 of them were full of suspicion. They really did not know how to set up the array in such a short time, just by watching him walk around. Chapter 624. Activate the array, 6 directions 8 desolations. His voice was powerful and resonant, like a yellow bell, landing in everyone's hearts. Yan Qingyi and Marshall did not feel any changes, they only stared with their eyes wide open. Tang Zheng pushed his palms forward, a formless innate qi surged out and struck the air. Hua! The air seemed to have turned into a water surface. Immediately, circles of ripples appeared and spread out in all directions. Rays of light broke out from the sand and rose from the ground like bamboo shoots breaking out of the ground. In the blink of an eye, they grew into towering green bamboos. 66 pillars of light surrounded the tree of life, as if they wanted to pierce through the heavens. Immediately, Yan Qingyi and Marshall were dumbstruck. This was like a special effect in a movie, and it was truly displayed in front of them. Majestic, magnificent, and had an indescribable grandeur. The pillars of light did not continue to rise into the sky. In the end, they gathered in the sky and intertwined together. With a boom, they collided and released an intense light. The light scattered in all directions, forming a screen of light. The screen of light landed on the ground and sank into the sand, disappearing without a trace. This scene lasted for a few minutes. The screen of light faded bit by bit, and finally disappeared without a trace. Everything returned to normal. Everything just now was like a dream. Yan Qingyi and Marshall looked at each other in dismay. They did not know what had changed after experiencing this scene. Tang Zheng also did not have the confidence, so he walked straight forward. Without any obstruction, he walked to the bottom of the tree of life. Looking up, there did not seem to be anything strange. Could it be that it failed? Tang Zheng unconsciously creased his eyebrows. Damn, Tian Chanzi can't be tricking me, right? If it really doesn't work, then I'll lose a lot of face. Turning his head to look at the two dumbstruck people, Tang Zheng thought nervously. Tang Zheng, how is it? Marshall was the first to break the silence. Tang Zheng coughed bitterly and said, this. For a moment, he could not think of an explanation. Marshall raised his eyebrows and said gloatingly, did you fail? Tang Zheng was speechless. Wu raised his leg and strode towards Tang Zheng. Bang! Suddenly, with a muffled sound and a flash of light, Marshall flew backwards and staggered to the ground, almost sitting on the ground. This. She was immediately stunned. The other two were also stunned. Yan Qingyi was amazed by this magical power, and Tang Zheng was secretly happy that he had regained what he had lost. Success. The Universal 8 Desolation Formation was successfully activated and protected the Tree of Life. Outsiders were unable to get close to the Tree of Life. However, because the person who had set up the formation was Tang Zheng, and he was the master of this Universal 8 Desolation Formation, he was able to pass through without any obstructions, and was not blocked outside the formation. As soon as the light appeared, everyone immediately noticed that something was wrong. The Tree of Life seemed to have been covered by a huge cover, completely covering it. Yan Qingyi stared at the light barrier and muttered to himself, the Universal 8 Desolation Formation is indeed magical. Marshall came back to his senses and snorted. However, he was not convinced and complained, you did it on purpose, right? You want me to make a fool of myself? Tang Zheng laughed bitterly and said, why would I do such a boring thing? Marshall took a deep breath and recalled the scene of him healing her. Only then did he suppress the anger in his heart. How did you do it? Yan Qingyi did not have the mood to care about Marshall's embarrassment and quickly asked. Cultivator's magic cannot be solved with common sense. The principle behind it is not something that can be explained in a few words. Everyone only needs to see the result. Tang Zheng said perfunctorily. Although Yan Qingyi felt that it was a pity, he did not ask any further. However, his mood was unable to calm down for a long time. Is that all? It can absorb the power of the ghost realm? After a long while, Yan Qingyi asked again. She was like a curious baby, curious about everything that was happening around her. Tang Zheng shook his head, it's not that easy. This is only to protect the Tree of Life. It will take a lot of effort to absorb the power of the ghost realm. After saying that, Tang Zheng did not delay any longer. Both of his hands converged and true qi surged out from his palms. Bang! He slapped the tree trunk with his palm, but the tree trunk did not move at all. Tang Zheng closed his eyes as the Dragon God technique silently circulated in his body. The dragon mark on his forehead lit up. In order to let the Tree of Life absorb the energy of the ghost realm, he had to rely on the power of the Dragon God technique to drive it. Because the five-clawed golden dragon only knew how to use the Dragon God technique to do this, Tang Zheng could only use the Dragon God technique. Fortunately, he cultivated the Dragon God technique. Otherwise, he could only sigh. The dual-clawed golden dragon in the dragon mark churned and roared towards the sky, as if it wanted to break through his forehead. What's going on? He had never felt this way before. Could it be because he came into contact with the Tree of Life? Before he had time to think about it carefully, the dual-clawed golden dragon rushed out from his forehead with a dragon roar. The dual-clawed golden dragon grew with the wind. In a flash, it grew to a length of several meters, like a young golden dragon. When it looked up, the dragon's might was fully revealed, causing people's hearts to tremble. Wu and Yan Qingyi were stunned once again. Their mouths were opened so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in. There was only one thought in their mind, dragon. This was actually the legendary dragon. Dragons were legendary creatures. Most people thought that this was just a legend and that dragons did not really exist. But this scene once again subverted their worldview. It turned out that dragons were not legends, but real existences. That awe-inspiring dragon face, the golden dragon body, all of them showed mystery and power. The two of them clearly saw that this golden dragon flew out from Tang Zheng's forehead. In other words, there was a golden dragon hidden in his body. This. No matter how big the hole in their brain was, they would never have thought of this. The two of them looked at Tang Zheng's body at the same time. Their hearts were filled with a strong desire to know how many more magical things were hidden in his body. The dual-clawed golden dragon soared into the sky, coiling around the tree trunk and soaring up. Wherever it passed, it left behind a dazzling golden light. Tang Zheng was also shocked by this scene. He had always thought that this golden dragon was just an illusion and not a real body. But today's scene was completely out of his expectations, subverting his understanding. It turned out that the golden dragon in the dragon seal was real. Damn, why didn't the five-clawed golden dragon tell me this? It only said that the dragon seal was very magical, but now there's actually a dual-clawed golden dragon hidden in my body. This is too ridiculous. Not long after, the five-clawed golden dragon broke through the canopy and arrived at the top of the tree. It finally stopped moving forward. Tang Zheng's line of sight was blocked, and he could not see clearly what was happening at the top of the tree. Just as this thought appeared, two golden lights flashed in his eyes. His eyes suddenly lit up, and he actually saw the scene at the top of the tree. Ah! He could not help but let out a low cry of surprise. But in an instant, he discovered something strange. It was not that his line of sight had pierced through the layers of leaves, but that he had seen everything that the dual-clawed golden dragon had seen. It was as if his pupils and the golden dragon's pupils had overlapped, and they were connected. What the golden dragon saw was what he saw. Even though he was thick-skinned, he was still shocked by this discovery. What the hell is going on? He was confused. However, his attention was quickly diverted. The dual-clawed golden dragon let out a dragon's roar towards the sky, shaking the heavens. A golden light shot out from its body and into the sky. Swish! A green light followed closely behind and also rushed into the sky. In an instant, it caught up to the golden light and simultaneously bombarded a point in the sky. Boom! With a loud explosion, the sky seemed as if it was about to collapse. Yan Qingyi and Wu's legs went soft, and they were almost knocked down by the loud explosion. The sand on the ground splashed up like water droplets. The two of them stretched their necks to look at the sky, but they were unable to clearly see what had happened. That was because the canopy was simply too big. Wu's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately retreated. Yan Qingyi also thought of something, and quickly retreated far away. Finally, he stopped in the distance and could clearly see the scene at the top of the tree. Under the bombardment of the two golden and green rays of light, the sky trembled, and circles of ripples spread out. A strong wind blew in the air, and a small black dot began to appear. This small black dot grew larger and larger, and in the end, it actually turned into a whirlpool. The clouds and air in all directions were sucked in by the whirlpool. The whirlpool was like the bloody mouth of a monster that swallowed everything, emitting a terrifying aura of death. What is this? The two of them did not know anything. They looked at Tang Zheng and found him standing under the tree like a puppet with his head raised. Why isn't he reacting? What is he thinking? Tang Zheng was attracted by the black whirlpool, and the trace of death aura that was emitted from it was so familiar. Ghost Realm. On the other side of the whirlpool was the Ghost Realm. He would definitely not be wrong. The double-clawed golden dragon and the Tree of Life together actually created a passage that connected the human world and the Ghost Realm. Creating a passage that connected the two worlds out of thin air, Tang Zheng did not need to waste his brain cells to know how difficult it was. But they did it so easily. With such a big commotion, will the Ghost Realm find out? Tang Zheng anxiously thought, but there was nothing he could do. The whirlpool spun rapidly, as if it wanted to devour everything in the world, but the golden dragon and the tree of life did not move. The two golden and green rays of light did not tremble at all as they connected with the whirlpool. Suddenly, a burst of energy gushed out from the whirlpool. Rustle, rustle. The leaves of the tree of life moved without any wind, making a series of sounds. The energy immediately rushed to the tree of life and was absorbed. This energy was invisible to the naked eye, but it did not escape Tang Zheng's perception. Immediately, he realized that this was definitely the source energy of the ghost realm, and it was absorbed by the tree of life just like that. That was to say, it was a success. The source energy of the ghost realm was constantly erupting from the whirlpool like a volcano. The tree of life kept shaking its leaves, like a cheerful child who had encountered his favorite snack, constantly absorbing. Could it be that it would continue to absorb like this? This was too big, even a blind person would find out. Tang Zheng scratched his head and became distressed. The two rays of light were suspended in mid-air, and the black whirlpool was even more dazzling. How could it be hidden from others? Chapter 625. Before he could find a solution to his distress, the scene in front of him changed again. The two pillars of light in the sky gradually faded and finally disappeared without a trace. Huh? What's going on? Before he could react, the vortex also disappeared out of thin air. The clouds in the sky were light and the wind was light. There was no trace of it. Could it be that it failed? His face darkened as he looked at the empty sky. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. No! The sky was still filled with the origin energy of the ghost realm. In other words, the origin energy of the ghost realm was still being absorbed, although the vortex had disappeared without a trace. He looked down. The leaves of the tree of life were still rustling, but they were shaking more slowly. A light flashed in his mind. He clapped his hands and said, "Yes. It didn't fail. This is a real success. I said that since the five-clawed golden dragon said that this method could be done without anyone noticing, then it definitely wouldn't be so obvious. Just now, it was just connecting to the ghost realm. That's why it was so powerful. Now that it's stabilized, all the signs gradually disappeared and became traceless. Great, now we don't have to worry about being discovered by outsiders. Is identical to, and the speed of absorbing the origin energy from the ghost realm is slower. This way, the five-clawed golden dragon's method is really effective." Roar. A dragon's roar interrupted Tang Zheng's thoughts. A golden light flashed in his eyes, and the scene in the sky disappeared. His eyes returned to normal, and he could only see the canopy above his head. Boom! The golden dragon penetrated the canopy and rushed directly toward Tang Zheng. The powerful dragon's aura made people tremble. But for Tang Zheng, there was a sense of intimacy. Facing this double-clawed golden dragon, he didn't feel fear. Instead, he felt intimacy, as if it was a part of his body. This feeling was extremely mysterious. The golden dragon crashed into Tang Zheng's body, causing Yan Qingyi and Wu Dou to let out a series of screams at the same time. The screams stopped abruptly, and the two stared with their eyes wide open. The scene they were afraid of did not happen. Tang Zheng was unscathed, but his body flashed with a golden light. The golden dragon disappeared, and the golden light soon disappeared without a trace, leaving only Tang Zheng standing quietly in place. The two of them looked at each other, then Wu took the lead and rushed towards Tang Zheng. Bang! She slammed into the light shield and was bounced back. Ignoring the pain, she punched the light shield and shouted at the top of her lungs, "Tang Zheng, are you okay?" Yan Qingyi followed closely behind and looked at Tang Zheng anxiously. However, Tang Zheng did not move at all. It was as if he had been immobilized. This was because his sea of consciousness was completely enveloped by a golden light. When the golden dragon hit him, he didn't feel any discomfort. The golden dragon rushed into his body and quickly returned to its original size. It circled around his meridians and finally returned to the middle of his forehead. However, within his sea of knowledge, a golden light appeared. Even the purple third-grade true fire was dyed with a layer of golden halo. The golden light followed the true fire. Unknowingly, the flame was mixed with a trace of gold. This was definitely not dyed with a golden halo, but a true golden color. That trace of true fire had turned golden. Golden true fire. Tang Zheng had never heard of such a thing. At least, he had never heard from Tian Chanzi that there was a golden true fire in this world. He didn't have time to carefully study it. The golden light retreated, completely withdrawing into the golden dragon. Everything returned to normal. Tang Zheng, quickly say something. What happened to you? An anxious scream interrupted his thoughts. He suddenly raised his head and saw that Wu Zheng was crazily slamming the light shield and shouting at the top of her lungs. Seeing her like this, Tang Zheng hurriedly came forward and said, "I'm fine." Without any obstruction, he passed through the light shield. Wu Zheng immediately stopped slamming the light shield and looked at him in a daze. The scene just now really scared her. That made her even more worried than her own injuries. "Humph, why are you pretending to be a statue?" Wu said unhappily. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. Yan Qingyi looked at the two of them thoughtfully. As a woman, she could see some subtle information from Wu Zheng's reaction. She couldn't help but fall into deep suspicion. She was no stranger to Wu Zheng. But the other party was a member of the martial organization. Why was she so close to Tang Zheng? Weren't the martial organization and the cultivators mortal enemies? For a moment, her brain short-circuited. She couldn't understand the whole story. The martial organization had internal strife. Outsiders didn't know about it. Therefore, Yan Qingyi didn't know that Wu Zheng was no longer a member of the martial organization. Of course, she didn't know about the relationship between Tang Zheng and the sect leader of the martial origin sect. Even so, she felt that there were more and more mysteries surrounding Tang Zheng's body. After solving one, there would immediately be several more, making it impossible for her to figure it out. The heavens will give a great responsibility to a man. If this kind of savior role can be understood in a short period of time, then it is indeed unrealistic. She automatically filled in an explanation. Is this enough? Yan Qingyi looked at the tree of life that was no different from before and asked. Wu also immediately looked at him attentively. Tang Zheng smiled faintly and said, "Of course." This way, the ghost realm's origin energy will be absorbed by the tree of life without anyone noticing, and replenish our world. Yan Qingyi smacked her lips and sighed, "You are too powerful." "Miss Yan, where are you going next?" Tang Zheng asked. Yan Qingyi looked deeply at the tree of life and said, "Since I can't study the tree of life, then I will naturally leave. In that case, let's leave as soon as possible. The dragon group will definitely make a comeback soon. We should leave this place." Tang Zheng was not afraid of the dragon group. Instead, he thought that since his goal had been achieved, there was no need to be entangled with the dragon group. The three of them walked out of the desert together. This side of the world immediately fell into silence. Only the rustling sound of the leaves of the tree of life could be heard. After a long time, a rumbling sound came from afar. A few black dots appeared in the sky. The black dots quickly approached and in the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of the tree of life. A few helicopters hovered in the air. The strong wind stirred up the yellow sand on the ground. The air was filled with yellow sand. So. 3 figures jumped down from the helicopters in the air. They did not have any protective equipment on their bodies. They hit the ground like meteorites. Bang bang bang. Yellow sand splashed everywhere. The 3 people's feet sank deeply into the yellow sand. However, their legs did not bend in the slightest. They did not care about the impact at all. It could be seen that the three people's bodies were strong. The three of them looked up at the same time. Their sharp eyes swept through every inch of space. One of them said in a deep voice, "That brat ran away." So. Xing Feng slid down the rope from the helicopter. When he heard this, he immediately frowned. He angrily shouted, "Ran away? How could you let him run away just like that?" Hearing this angry roar, the three of them hurriedly lowered their heads and said respectfully, "Master, this is all because we were careless and allowed the other party to find this flaw. If one of the three of us was still here, then the Flame Emperor would definitely not have died in vain. Yes, we four heavenly kings have lost the Fire King. This is a great shame and loss." Another person agreed. "We must take revenge." Xing Feng sternly looked at the three people. These three people were his most powerful subordinates. They were the four heavenly kings of the dragon group with the Fire King. They were also loyal to him and were willing to recognize him as their master. "No matter the cost, we must find that brat even if we have to turn the sky upside down." Xing Feng was unable to restrain his anger. He was truly angry. He had compromised with Su Yingtian and temporarily had a truce with Tang Zheng. However, he did not expect this peace to be so fragile and broken so quickly. This heavy blow could be said to be a great humiliation. It was a heavy blow to the confidence of the Dragon Group members. Now, whenever the name Tang Zheng was mentioned, a shadow would appear in their hearts. He was simply the Dragon Group's nightmare. "Yes, we will give chase." The three heavenly kings accepted the order. "No rush, first check the Tree of Life. This is the key." Xing Feng looked at the Tree of Life and did not find anything strange. Only then did he relax. After all, the Tree of Life was the most important thing. If he could find out the secret, then the weight in his hands would increase exponentially. The researchers also came down from the helicopter one after another. They carried all kinds of equipment and quickly approached the Tree of Life. Bang, 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 muffled sounds of collision rang out one after another. Everyone found that the Tree of Life was just inches away, but they could not get any closer. A barrier of light appeared and completely enveloped the Tree of Life. "Ah!" Cries of surprise rang out from all directions. Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene. What was going on? How did this ghost light barrier appear? Everyone looked at each other, but no one knew the answer. Xing Feng was stunned for a moment. He was so angry that he stomped his feet and shouted, "It must be that brat's doing. What the hell is this thing? Hurry up and get rid of it." The three heavenly kings jumped and directly attacked the light barrier in an attempt to destroy it. A series of muffled sounds rang out. Then, the three figures were quickly bounced back and landed on the yellow sand. They were battered and exhausted. The three of them did not know what to do. The strength of the attack just now was not small. It was enough to split open a stone. However, it did not damage the light barrier at all. It did not even tremble. Xing Feng was also a little dumbfounded. This was completely out of his expectations. However, he did not believe that he could not break this light barrier. If fists were not enough, then let's use high technology. Missiles, get ready. Blast this damn thing away. Fire! Xing Feng shouted into the earpiece. The helicopter hovering in the air immediately spat out a few flames. A few missiles whistled through the air toward the light barrier. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions caused flowers to bloom on the light barrier. The sparks were more dazzling than the eye. To use a fashionable phrase to describe the result, however, it was useless. F*CK. 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 Chapter 626. In a small town on the edge of the desert, Tang Zheng and Yan Qingyi parted ways. Yan Qingyi already knew that Tang Zheng was going to meet Tian Chanzi. She was also curious about Tian Chanzi. However, she still did not follow him. Her relationship with Tang Zheng was not that close. Moreover, she was in a hurry to return to the capital to report what she had seen and heard to her father. Especially what Tang Zheng had done, there was no doubt that this was bound to dispel the Yan family's worries and make the Yan family more closely stick to Tang Zheng without reservation. After parting ways, Tang Zheng and Marshall were not in a hurry to leave the town. This was because Marshall was in too sorry of a state. He was covered in smoke and fire, as if he had just walked out of a fire. He had to buy her a set of clothes and pack a little before they could set off. After choosing a clothing store, the two of them walked in and chose a set of clothes. Wu entered the fitting room to change, while Tang Zheng stood outside in boredom, observing the pedestrians. Ah! Suddenly, a scream came from the fitting room. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. Without hesitation, he turned around and rushed to the fitting room. This place was too close to the desert, maybe the dragon group's pursuers would arrive, and Marshall's hands were injured, so her strength was greatly reduced. Hearing her screams, Tang Zheng obviously could not sit idly by. Bang! The door of the fitting room could not stop Tang Zheng at all. He rushed in, and the white scene jumped into his eyes. Ah, what are you doing here? Marshall was dumbstruck as he stared blankly at the uninvited guest. She was completely naked, and her slim figure was unreservedly displayed in front of Tang Zheng. I'm sorry. Tang Zheng quickly apologized. It seemed that he was too nervous and made a mistake. She was not in any danger at all. However, the scenery was indeed too alluring. He hurriedly wanted to retreat, but he put his foot back down and stared straight at her chest. What are you looking at? Wu Qi blushed and covered his chest with his hands, but a lot of scenery still leaked into Tang Zheng's vision. Although the two of them already had skin-to-skin contact and were no strangers to each other's bodies, being stared at by her in broad daylight like this, Marshall was still not used to it. Very not used to it. Take your hand away, Tang Zheng said. You. Shameless. Marshall thought that he was going to do something that would anger both men and gods, and couldn't help but grit his teeth. Even if she was not injured, she was not a match for Tang Zheng. If he used force, she would not be able to resist. This was the fitting room. There were people outside. Even a deaf person could hear what was happening inside. This could be considered a live broadcast. Wu was so ashamed that she was unable to show her face. Her cheeks were as hot as burning iron, but her hands were firmly protecting her chest, making a final desperate resistance. Tang Zheng frowned, and with lightning speed, he grabbed her arm, and with a sudden force, Wu's hands were moved to the side. Immediately, her bare chest appeared in front of Tang Zheng's eyes, without the slightest bit of obstruction. Wu was powerless to resist, his legs went soft, and he gasped for breath. Using the last of his strength, he bit his lips and scolded, "You bastard! What are you thinking about?" Tang Zheng said snappily. "Look at the wound on your chest." Tang Zheng pointed at the wound in the center of his chest. It was like a big mouth, incomparably ugly, completely destroying the alluring scenery without restraint. Wu Qi looked down and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Just now, when she was taking off her clothes, she discovered this wound. The wound was tightly attached to her clothes, and when she suddenly took off her clothes, the skin of the wound stuck to her clothes and was taken off, completely exposing the wound. The tearing pain caused her to involuntarily scream. It was this pitiful cry that attracted Tang Zheng to barge in. It was when Tang Zheng saw this wound that he stopped. The wound was black and red, a mixture of smoke and blood. "Don't move, I'll clean your wound, otherwise it will be troublesome if it gets infected," Tang Zheng said seriously as he fixed her body with one hand. At this moment, his eyes were incomparably clear, without the slightest trace of distracting thoughts, only concern. A warm current flowed through Wu's heart. She wanted to sternly refuse, but when the words reached her mouth, she couldn't say it. She could only obediently stay motionless. Tang Zheng took out medicine from his spatial ring to clean her wound. When the cold medicine touched the wound, she suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air, and the pain made her tremble violently. "Bear with it, it'll be fine in a while." Tang Zheng comforted her softly. Wu Qi quickly clenched his teeth, lowered his eyes, and watched as his hand slid across his chest, carefully cleaning the wound. The black blood mixed with the medicine was washed clean, revealing the bright red muscles inside. It was a shocking sight. Tang Zheng's expression was focused. His gaze did not linger on the two sides of the impressive scenery, but instead focused on the wound. After a while, the wound was clear. Tang Zheng took out the ointment and applied it to her. Only then did he take a deep breath and stop. "It'll be fine when the wound scars." "Scar?" Wu Qi's expression tightened. His gaze couldn't help but fall on his hands. That pair of slender white hands had already been confirmed to have scars. Could it be that there would also be scars on his chest? Any woman would have a desire to protect her own body. It was like a flawless blue and white porcelain with a little flaw, causing people to sigh. The scar on her chest was not a little flaw, it would greatly damage the scenery. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to bear to look at her chest in the future, let alone other men, such as Tang Zheng. What am I thinking about? How could I let him see it? She quickly denied this idea, and couldn't help but feel a little flustered. I'll think of a way to deal with this scar in the future. There will always be a way. Tang Zheng also felt that leaving this scar would greatly damage the scenery, so he comforted her. Marshall did not comment. He turned his gaze and immediately discovered that Tang Zheng's gaze was on both sides of his chest. She was both embarrassed and angry. She scolded in a low voice, "Get out." With a push of his elbow, he knocked Tang Zheng out. He quickly used his body to block the door, his heart pounding. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. He rubbed his nose resentfully and muttered, "It's not like I haven't seen it before. Why are you hiding it?" When he raised his head, he discovered that everyone was looking at him with strange gazes. Many men even gave Tang Zheng a "bro, you're awesome" smirk. "Damn, I've been misunderstood. I haven't done anything bad. Damn, I've suffered a huge loss." A moment later, Marshall walked out neatly dressed. When he noticed that everyone was looking at him strangely, he immediately understood that they had misunderstood. However, this matter was not easy to explain, so he glared at Tang Zheng hatefully. Tang Zheng chuckled and pretended not to see it. He shamelessly paid the bill while Marshall had already rushed out of the clothing store, unwilling to endure those strange gazes. "What are you dawdling for?" Seeing Tang Zheng come out, Marshall grumbled in annoyance. Tang Zheng chuckled and said, "We're not in a hurry, so why are we in such a hurry? Let's go, where are we going?" "Abroad." Tang Zheng snapped his fingers and said. Of course, he couldn't openly leave the country. Instead, he had to sneak out of the country. For ordinary people, this was as difficult as ascending to the heavens, but for these two daring fellows, it wasn't difficult at all. 2 days later, Tang Zheng stood on the land of a foreign country. This was a small country on the southwest border of Huaxia. Its economy was backward, and all kinds of powers were mixed together. It was not a safe area. Of course, this was relatively speaking. It was not safe for others, but for Tang Zheng, it was a paradise. This was a place where strength was respected, and the law was not very useful here. As long as your fist was hard enough and your strength was strong enough, you were the boss. In this season, Huaxia was still cold, but this area was already very hot. The air was humid, and it was not very comfortable. The two of them crossed the mountains and finally saw a muddy road. There was a lot of rain in this area, and these mountain roads were all dirt roads, leaving behind tire grooves for cars to drive through. The witch clan was still a few hundred kilometers away from here. Back then, after they escaped from the 10,000 mountains, they were worried that the military would chase after them, so they deliberately escaped further away from the border before settling down. Let's find a car first. Tang Zheng decided on a strategy, so he followed the road. This was the first time Wu had gone abroad, so he did not look around. Although the mountains and rivers were not much different from Huaxia, there was still a sense of novelty. You're really smart to hide the witch clan in this foreign country, Wu Zan said. This was a place where one could attack or retreat. In fact, if one really couldn't do anything, they could even run away. Not far away, there was a large river that connected to the sea. One could directly go to the sea or cross the border from other countries to reach many countries. In short, this chaotic area contained many possibilities. Back then, Tang Zheng was worried about the officials' attitude towards him and the witch clan, which was why he made such a plan. However, for the time being, he did not need to take this step. Of course, he also understood that this time, he had poked at the sore spot of the dragon group. Xing Feng would definitely not sit idly by. Perhaps after returning home, he would face a lot of trouble. But today, how could he care about all this? There were so many lice that he was not afraid of it. He and the dragon group were in a life and death situation. The power of the martial sect only radiates to Huaxia. If master and mistress brought people here, it would not be easy for the martial sect to find trouble with them. Wu muttered to himself. Tang Zheng's heart moved, and he asked, "How are they?" Ever since Lan Yu left, the two sides had not contacted each other. This was because Lan Yu knew about Tang Zheng's conflicting emotions and did not dare to contact him directly. Wu looked at him in surprise, as if the sun had risen from the west. He actually took the initiative to care about his master and mistress. Tang Zheng felt uncomfortable being stared at by her, and said, "If you don't want to say it, then don't say it." With that, he hurriedly buried his head in his journey. Wu glared at her and said, "Every time I contact mistress, she would ask about your situation, but you never asked about her. This time, you finally found your conscience. If you want to know how they are doing, you can contact them directly when you return home." "Humph, I'm not contacting him." Tang Zheng turned his head and stubbornly said. How could the grudge in his heart be so easily eliminated? Bang bang bang. Chapter 627. As the gunshots came closer, Tang Zheng and Marshall immediately stopped in their tracks. However, they were not in a hurry to hide. Instead, they stretched their necks to look around. A car suddenly rushed out from the bend in the road ahead. It was very fast, swaying left and right, as if it could fall off the cliff at any time. There were many bullet holes on the car, like ugly scars. Moreover, there were many dents on the car, making it look very miserable. A submachine gun stuck out of the window and fired crazily behind them. Several cars sped out from the bend and rushed straight at the car in front of them. The bullets just happened to hit these cars, making clanging sounds. "What's going on?" Marshall asked curiously. "Chase. What should we do? This must be a local power struggle. We don't need to get involved. It's more important to hurry," Tang Zheng said in a deep voice. Even though they said that, the two of them did not dodge at all. Instead, they continued to move forward, heading towards these cars. This was not the reaction of an ordinary person, but the two of them were bold. It was only a few guns, so they did not put them in their eyes. In an instant, the distance between the two sides closed. The pursuers behind them also kept shooting. Bullets flew in the air. The rain of bullets caused many flowers and plants on the side of the road to be affected. Tang Zheng and Marshall faced the rain of bullets, but they were calm and composed. It was as if a cool breeze had blown past. They did not have the slightest reaction, and their footsteps did not change in the slightest. Of course, in the eyes of ordinary people, this was simply stupid to the point of death. Whiz! The car in front of them sped past them. Tang Zheng glanced sideways and saw 4 people sitting in the car. In the front row was a driver and a gunman. Behind them sat an old man and a short-haired youth. The youth also subconsciously turned his head to look at the stranger on the side of the road. Coincidentally, his eyes met with Tang Zheng's. This young man is so delicate and pretty. His skin is not as dark as the people here. It is just that he is slightly thin and does not seem to have much strength. Only. His eyes were already filled with despair. The old man had a white beard. He was rather dignified and had the bearing of a superior. Tang Zheng said. It seemed that his guess was right. This was definitely a battle between 2 powers. The old man's side had obviously lost, so they were being chased by their enemies. The people here were very particular about cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots to prevent future troubles. These 2 people had no chance of surviving today. He sighed in his heart, but he did not intend to make a move. This was the law of the jungle in this area. The winner was king, and the loser was a bandit. As an outsider, he did not intend to break this law. Moreover, he did not have the ability to do so. This was almost the universal law of the world. It was just that here, it was even more unbridled and vivid. Bang bang bang. The bullets hit the back of the car and sparks flew, but Tang Zheng didn't even blink. He quickly retracted his gaze. There were 3 cars chasing after them, and they were very imposing. Black muzzles popped out of the car windows, and the triggers were quickly pulled. The muzzles spat out flames. Whoosh! The car at the front drove past the 2 of them. A few unfriendly gazes shot out from inside, like wolves in the forest, fiercely staring at the 2 passers-by. The second car also drove past the 2 of them. When the third car drove past, a gun suddenly changed direction and aimed at Tang Zheng. His eyes burned with unbridled madness. In addition, the other party was greedily looking at Wu. Without a doubt, a woman's beauty was the biggest dangerous factor here. A beauty of Wu's level was extremely rare in this place. It could be said that she was the best of the best. The people in the car stared at Wu. They almost didn't need to think before they made a decision: kill this man and steal this woman. Therefore, the muzzle of the gun was aimed at Tang Zheng, and mercilessly pulled the trigger. Of course, Tang Zheng saw the other party's reaction. His originally calm expression immediately turned cold. He slipped and easily dodged the bullet. The other party immediately revealed a look of surprise. He thought that the other party was just lucky, so he angrily roared a few words. Immediately, the other people in the car immediately turned their guns and aimed at Tang Zheng, determined to kill him. Humph, reckless. Tang Zheng originally didn't care, but the other party actually wanted to kill him, which touched his bottom line. He didn't care who the other party was or what kind of power they had. Since they dared to provoke him, they had to be mentally prepared to be killed. Whiz! His figure flashed, and like a berserk tiger, he rushed out. The other party's bullet missed again, and when they wanted to turn the muzzle of the gun, they found that the delicate and pretty man had already arrived in front of them. A huge fist appeared in their field of vision. This fist seemed to carry an unstoppable force as it fiercely struck the car. Bang! With a muffled sound, the car quickly caved in. Cracks spread from the center of the fist in all directions, like a spider web. The car's forward momentum came to an abrupt halt as it flew horizontally and hit the mountain wall on the inner side of the road. With a loud bang, the car almost fell apart, and all 4 wheels were directly sent flying into the sky. The people in the car were dizzy and saw stars. They screamed loudly and awkwardly got out of the car and shouted loudly at Tang Zheng. However, Tang Zheng couldn't understand the other party's language, so he could only stare at them. Seeing that they didn't win the slightest verbal victory, the few people didn't talk nonsense anymore. They pointed their guns at Tang Zheng and started to shoot. But the next second, where did he go? The few people found that the other party disappeared, leaving only the beautiful woman not far away looking at them calmly. Her eyes were cold, as if she was looking at a dead person. The sound of something breaking through the air came from behind. Before the few people had time to react, they felt the world spin and they were already in the air, falling straight down the cliff. Ah! The screams resounded through the mountains and fields, and then disappeared in an instant. After effortlessly taking care of these blind fellows, Tang Zheng clapped his hands and turned his head to look. The two cars of pursuers had already forced the target car to stop. Both sides were shooting at each other from a distance. Bullets flew everywhere, extremely intense. The pursuers also discovered that one of their cars had encountered an accident. Some of them turned around and glared at Tang Zheng, arrogant and filled with killing intent. "What are you going to do?" Marshall asked. Tang Zheng sighed and said, "I was prepared to be a passerby, but since the other party is courting death, then don't blame me. If we don't make a move, when they finish off the target, they will definitely not hesitate to point their guns at us." Marshall chuckled, in high spirits. Facing these killings, she would feel excited, and her cells would cheer. Of course, this little bit of killing was completely unable to stir her nerves. It was just a pastime after a meal. After all, the journey had been too peaceful, and he was not used to it. "Femme fatale, it's all because of your face." Tang Zheng deliberately dragged out his voice and sighed. Wu raised her eyebrows and said, "Looks are natural, how can you blame me?" Tang Zheng shrugged his shoulders and said, "If I don't blame you, then I can only blame them. Since that's the case, then kill them all." Wu said calmly, but it was precisely this calmness that caused people to tremble. As expected, Marshall was still that Marshall. She did not change her personality just because she was by Tang Zheng's side. She was still decisive in killing, and her blood was filled with killing and violence. "Then let's do it. I'm an injured person. Do you want me to do it?" Marshall raised his hand and waved it, asking. After experiencing the long journey of these 2 days, the awkwardness in the fitting room seemed to have disappeared on the surface. The two of them had returned to their previous state. Tang Zheng shrugged his shoulders, smiled, and swaggered towards the location of the battle. The pursuers immediately discovered this uninvited guest. Just now, they were in the car and did not clearly see how Tang Zheng dealt with their accomplices, so they did not know how powerful Tang Zheng was. Of course, these bloodthirsty fellows could still determine that this was a ruthless character. Therefore, before Tang Zheng could even get close, someone had already shot at him. However, the marksmanship was a bit unsatisfactory. Tang Zheng did not need to dodge at all. The bullets were still far away from him. He walked towards the other party with a calm expression, completely ignoring the whistling bullets. However, this calm and composed demeanor had already stunned the pursuers. Immediately, they shouted loudly, and judging from their expressions and tone, it was definitely not something good. The two sides closed the distance, and the other party's accuracy finally increased by a lot. Many bullets were aimed straight at Tang Zheng's body. Tang Zheng could no longer stroll around, but in the eyes of the other party, his reaction was almost the same as strolling around. He only gently twisted his body or moved his steps, nimbly dodging the bullets. Not long after, he arrived in front of the other party. The dozen or so pursuers actually forgot to shoot for a moment as they stared at him with their mouths agape. They had never seen this kind of ability before. It was simply like a ghost or god. However, these people who killed without blinking never believed in ghosts and gods. Even if the other party was really a ghost or god, they would not hesitate to kill him. After a brief moment of shock, a dozen or so guns fired at Tang Zheng together. At this time, they did not care about their original target. Tang Zheng leapt like a rabbit and swooped like a falcon, shuttling through the crowd. Peng peng peng, the sound of gunfire continued to ring out, but the shooter quickly discovered that his gun was not aimed at the target, but at his companion. He watched helplessly as his accomplice fell under the muzzle of his gun. It was too strange. Finally, someone could not withstand this test and broke down. He shouted and rushed into the car, trying to start the car and escape. However, the road ahead was blocked by the car, so he could only retreat. However, Tang Zheng was standing in the middle of the road, so the car roared crazily and crashed into Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng slowly stretched out a hand. Bang! With a violent crash, the car hit Tang Zheng's palm, and the rear of the car immediately caved in. The wheels kept turning, but it could not go back. Hee, so impatient. Are you in a hurry to be reincarnated? Then I'll fulfill your wish. Tang Zheng leaped up and sent a flying kick, fiercely kicking the car. Whoosh! Chapter 628. The others were already stunned and ran away. Tang Zheng's figure flashed as he grabbed a few people by their collars and threw them off the cliff to accompany their companions. One of them ran the fastest and had already run in front of Marshall. Although the opponent was a stunning beauty, he was not in the mood to appreciate it. But his eyes immediately lit up with the flame of hope. Since he was not this person's opponent, then he would grab this woman as a hostage. This way he could definitely save his life. The gun's bullets were already empty, so he pulled out a dagger and directly grabbed Marshall's arm, wanting to hold her hostage. However, this move actually missed. His elbow was hit by a powerful force and suddenly bent. Puff! The dagger quickly and accurately pierced his heart while his own hand was still tightly holding onto the dagger. He stared at this scene dumbfoundedly, almost unable to believe his eyes. How could he be so stupid, stabbing himself? Suddenly, he raised his head and saw the beautiful woman's cold eyes. Only then did he realize that the other party was not a weak sheep but a beautiful snake. Of course, this could only be his last thought in his life. Marshall did not even look at the other party's limp body. Instead, she looked at Tang Zheng. Their eyes met and Tang Zheng gave her a thumbs up. Marshall did not move and walked straight to him and asked, "What should we do?" "Let's go. The trouble has been solved." Tang Zheng naturally would not stay. From beginning to end, the two of them did not look at the situation of the car in front of them because they really did not plan to pay attention to it. This kind of thing was too normal in this place. The two of them lifted their legs and walked away. Suddenly, an old and weak voice came from behind. "The two of you, wait a moment." It was actually Huaxia language. Huh? Tang Zheng stopped in his tracks. Being in a foreign country, hearing the local accent, he felt a sense of familiarity. So he turned around and walked towards the other party. He saw that the car was already riddled with holes. Blood flowed down the seams of the car. The two people in the front seat were already shot to death. The old man in the back seat was dying. His body was also dyed red with blood. The young man was biting his lips and nestled beside the old man. He was unharmed. However, it was obvious that he was not in his best condition. It was obvious that he was scared. When the old man saw the two of them walking over, he tried to sit up straight but it affected his wound. He couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. Tang Zheng pressed on his shoulder and advised, "Don't move. I'll check your injuries." The old man shook his head and said, "I know my own body best. I can't do it anymore." Tang Zheng sighed. That was indeed the case. "Are you from Huaxia?" The old man stared at Tang Zheng and asked. "Yes." Tang Zheng didn't hide anything from a dying man. The old man raised his head and looked into the distance. It was the direction of Huaxia. He sighed faintly and said, Huaxia, the hometown you can't go back to. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat as he asked, Are you also from Huaxia? The old man bitterly smiled and said, I am just a lonely ghost. I don't know if I can still be considered as a Huaxia person. Tang Zheng knew that he must have been a Huaxia person in the past. Moreover, he was a person with a story. It was just that he didn't know why he left his hometown and came to this land. Tang Zheng couldn't help but feel a sense of closeness. However, if he knew that he was a Huaxia person, perhaps Tang Zheng would have taken action earlier. But this was fate. It couldn't be forced. I'm going to die. Hero, can you save my grandson? The old man asked expectantly. He's not injured. Don't worry. Tang Zheng comforted him. No, although he's not injured, but without me, he'll be hunted down by his enemies. Please, take him with you. He'll only be safe if he's by your side. We'll definitely repay you. The old man sincerely begged. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. You're about to die. How can you repay me? However, looking at the old man's sincere eyes and the helpless young man, he couldn't help but feel a little soft-hearted. If he was in China, he would still be in junior high school at this age. It would still be a carefree age. However, he had already experienced the baptism of war and the separation of life and death. He was really pitiful. Tang Zheng couldn't help but think of his own situation. He also thought of his grandfather. He and his grandfather depended on each other. However, this young man was even more pitiful than himself. Even his grandfather was about to leave him. He was moved by compassion, so he nodded and said, Old man, don't worry. I'm here. I'll protect him. Thank you, thank you. Although the old man didn't know Tang Zheng's background, nor did he see the battle between Tang Zheng and those people just now, judging from the sound, he knew that this person was very strong. That was why he could get rid of the pursuers so easily. Now, his grandson needed the protection of such a strong person to survive in this area. But I won't be here for long. I'll go back to China. Tang Zheng suddenly realized a problem. No matter how you arrange him, I have no objections. The old man was not picky. Since that was the case, Tang Zheng couldn't refuse. The old man took the young man's hand and said something again. It was the local language, not Huaxia language. The young man began to sob. He hugged the old man's arm and began to mumble something in his mind. The old man stroked the young man's hair, comforted him, and then sternly warned him. Then, he placed the young man's hand in Tang Zheng's palm and said seriously, Warrior, I'll leave Qianyu to you. Qianyu, from now on, you have to listen to him. Do you understand? You have to live well. Our Ling family doesn't have a single coward. The young man looked at Tang Zheng with teary eyes and nodded. Old man, don't worry. Tang Zheng said. The old man smiled. Suddenly, his arm slid down from the young man's head. He slowly closed his eyes and lost all signs of life. Grandfather. The young man threw himself on the old man's body and wailed. Tang Zheng let out a long sigh and walked away with Marshall, giving the young man some time alone. A moment later, footsteps sounded behind the two of them. They turned around and saw the young man walking over. His tears had been wiped away and there was a trace of tenacity in his eyes. He was not an ordinary person. If it was an ordinary person, how could they walk out from their grief so quickly? This person was clearly much stronger than his peers. Can you help me bury my grandfather? The young man calmly asked. You're called Ling Qianyu? Tang Zheng asked. The young man nodded and asked, Can I? No problem. Tang Zheng carried the old man, the driver, and the gunman out and went to a nearby mountain and said, Here it is. The scenery is not bad. Ling Qianyu nodded in agreement. I'll dig it myself. Ling Qianyu used a piece of cloth that Tang Zheng tore off and stubbornly dug the soil. She bit her lips and the pupils in her eyes became more intense. However, she resisted and did not shed a single tear. Tang Zheng quickly dug 2 holes to bury the other 2 people. Ling Qianyu just finished digging the grave. He struggled to carry his grandfather and gently placed him in the grave. He said in a low voice, "Grandfather, Qianyu will be strong. Qianyu will definitely take revenge for you." Then, he covered his grandfather with soil. Not long after, a small grave was covered. Ling Qianyu knelt in front of the grave and heavily kowtowed 3 times without saying a word. "Let's go. Where are we going next?" Tang Zheng sighed and asked. Ling Qianyu stared at Tang Zheng and said, "Wherever you go, I will go." "Do you have any relatives?" Shaking his head. "Then do you have a place you want to go?" Shaking his head. "Don't you want revenge?" Ling Qianyu's eyes finally had a trace of fluctuation, flickering with the sparks of hatred. She nodded and said, "Yes, I want revenge." "Then take me to find your enemy. I will help you to the end." Unexpectedly, Ling Qianyu immediately shook her head. Her eyes were firm as she said unquestionably, "I want to take revenge for myself. I don't want to borrow the hands of others." "Huh, you really have a backbone." Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily and nodded approvingly. This kid's tenacity was to his liking. "But I don't know anything. I'm too weak, so I need your protection. However, I will remember this kindness. Grandfather taught me since I was young that a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. I will repay you double in the future." Tang Zheng shook his head. "From the moment I promised your grandfather, I didn't expect anything in return. As long as you live well, it will be the best filial piety to your grandfather and the greatest repayment to me." Ling Qianyu neither agreed nor disagreed, but his pair of large eyes explained everything. His heart definitely still held on to his own view, and was not moved by Tang Zheng's words. Tang Zheng's fiery golden eyes obviously saw through it, but he did not say anything. After all, everyone had their own set of principles and could not be forced. "Grandfather said that you are an expert. Can you teach me martial arts? This way I can take revenge." She stared straight at Tang Zheng and asked. "Martial arts, it's not impossible. However, I will not casually teach people martial arts. But I feel that when the time is right, I will naturally teach you." Tang Zheng said. "I can wait." Ling Qianyu nodded heavily. She did not have the slightest complaint. She only had confidence that came from the depths of her soul. Marshall had been silently observing Ling Qianyu and suddenly said, "He is a good seedling to learn martial arts." Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. How could he not see it? But the evil aura on his body was too strong. Rashly learning martial arts was not a good thing. In a rush for success, it was possible for him to go berserk. That would be counterproductive. Ling Qianyu did not show any joy because of this praise. Instead, she had a calm face. Just like she said, she could wait. She could wait until Tang Zheng felt that the time was right. "Let's go. Let's go. It's almost dark," Tang Zheng said. The 3 of them climbed over the mountain and saw a small town in the distance. "Tonight, let's go to that town and rest for a night." Ling Qianyu wanted to say something but hesitated. "If you have something to say then say it. I don't have that many rules here." Tang Zheng looked at her and said. "That is the territory of my enemy." "What, you don't dare to go?" Tang Zheng deliberately provoked her. Chapter 629. The town was bustling with noise, completely unlike the quiet beauty of Huaxia's Jiangnan town. It was dirty, messy, and poor. Tang Zheng and the other two leisurely walked in and found that there were many Westerners here, clearly tourists. Not far away, signs of hotels, casinos, and nightclubs came into view. These signs also had Huaxia characters. Obviously, there were many Huaxia tourists here. Tang Zheng had seen some historical information before. In the war of the last century, many Huaxia troops eventually fled here and took root here. Therefore, Huaxia was one of the main languages here. Although small, it has all the essentials. But I wonder who has the guts to come here and spend money. Tang Zheng shook his head. It was hard to imagine. You are wrong. This place receives many tourists every year. Whether it is Huaxia people or Westerners, there are many who come here. Although there are all kinds of people here, they will not attack tourists because tourists are one of the sources of income. No one will be so ignorant as to break the rules here. Ling Qianyu heard this and refuted without hesitation. Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and said, "Then why did those people shoot at me for no reason?" Ling Qianyu said without hesitation, "This rule is only valid in the town. Outside the town is a lawless area. Not many people will follow this rule." After pausing for a moment, he pointed at a few buses in the distance and said, "Look at those buses over there. These tourists came here on these special buses. There are armed guards on the buses, so no one will attack the buses." "Oh, so there are so many ways. I still don't think this place has anything to do with tourism." Tang Zheng disagreed. There was no beautiful scenery here, nor was there a comfortable environment. He really did not know what these people were doing here. Ling Qianyu shook her head and said, "As long as you have money, you can enjoy the treatment of an emperor here. Money means everything. You can even buy a life. Look at those people over there. They are mercenaries. When they are on vacation, they like to come here. This can be considered their paradise. Gambling, drugs, women, everything." Tang Zheng looked up. Those few strong and powerful men indeed had the smell of iron and blood. They had experienced the tempering of blood. Most of these people were hedonists. Once they had money, they would spend it. This place was indeed suitable for them. "Are you afraid of being recognized?" Wu asked curiously. "No, because no one here has seen me before," Ling Qianyu said confidently. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. "No wonder you're not afraid at all." Ling Qianyu stopped and stared at Tang Zheng, and said, "I am not afraid not because of this, but because of you. You will protect me." Tang Zheng was slightly startled. This little brat really has a lot of confidence in me. However, when he heard that the people here did not recognize him, it was out of Tang Zheng's expectations. "Your home is here. Could it be that you have never shown yourself before?" "My home is not here. This is just a small town near the border," Ling Qianyu explained. "All right, take us to a hotel." Although Ling Qianyu had never been here before, she still found a hotel with ease. The innkeeper also knew a few simple Huaxia words. After a simple exchange, she opened 3 rooms. The conditions of the hotel were not bad. There were all kinds of furniture, and most of them were branded goods. However, many of them were products of Huaxia. After tidying up, it was already dark. The 3 of them went downstairs to eat. While eating, Tang Zheng carefully observed his surroundings. Guns were everywhere, and many people had guns on them. He actually saw that there were guns hidden behind the cashier. There are so many guns. No wonder this place is always so chaotic. Guns are banned in Huaxia. If someone bought a gun here and smuggled it back to the country, it would not be too difficult. Ling Qianyu looked at him approvingly and said, "You are right. Many fugitives in Huaxia buy guns here and then sneak back to the country." F***ck. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes speechlessly. He had guessed correctly. Since you are here, why don't you go and experience the projects here? Ling Qianyu asked. Hehe, I am not interested in these. Tang Zheng smiled and said. They finished eating and were about to return to the hotel. Suddenly, Tang Zheng stopped and stared at a figure in the distance. Hey, why does this figure look so familiar? The other party walked straight into a nearby nightclub and disappeared from Tang Zheng's sight. It was very fresh to see an acquaintance in this place. No matter what, he had to investigate clearly. Thus, he warned, you guys go back to the hotel first. I have something to do first. Wu Xiu raised her eyebrows and looked in the direction of Tang Zheng's gaze. She immediately frowned and ridiculed, just now you righteously said that you weren't interested. So it turns out that your mouth doesn't match your heart. Seeing this kind of place, you can't walk away. Obviously, she had misunderstood Tang Zheng and thought that he wanted to go to the nightclub to play. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily, but did not explain further. He directly walked towards the entrance of the nightclub. The footsteps behind followed closely behind. Tang Zheng had no choice but to stop. He turned around and looked at Wu and said, you are a woman. You even go to this kind of place? Why can't I go? Marshall said disapprovingly. Are you sure you know what's inside? Isn't it the dirty business of you men? If you swagger in like this, others will think you are an alien. Why should I care what others think? Tang Zheng said without a care. Ling Qianyu also followed like a little tail. Tang Zheng was unable to persuade Wu Xiu, but he could not let Ling Qianyu go back to the hotel alone. That would be too dangerous. Sigh, fine. Since you don't mind, then let's go together. It's not like I'm the one who has to endure those gazes. Tang Zheng shrugged and said indifferently. Thus, an interesting scene appeared at the entrance of the nightclub. A man with a beautiful woman and a youth swaggered in. Whoosh! The busybodies immediately whistled loudly and grinned at the three of them. The security guard at the entrance of the nightclub glanced at the three of them. In the end, he did not stop the business and let the three of them in. Wu was like Granny Lu entering the Grand View Garden. She kept looking around. Although she was strong, she did not have much experience in the secular world. There were many places she had not been to, such as this kind of place. On the other hand, Ling Qianyu was calm and composed. She did not show the slightest difference. Tang Zheng was more and more certain that this kid's position in the family was not ordinary. His knowledge was not bad. However, bringing a 10-year-old child to this kind of place was really a sin. It could be considered a bad influence on a minor. Tang Zheng suppressed the messy thoughts in his mind. His eyes kept looking around. However, that familiar figure had disappeared. Where did he go? Tang Zheng frowned. The three of them found a booth in the hall and sat down. It was convenient for them to observe. On the stage, there was a reality show. As for the content of the show, cough cough, it was a bit unsuitable for children. It was actually a striptease. The dancer's clothes had already been taken off. The upper half of her body was covered with a transparent white thin shirt. The lower half of her body was covered with a small pair of underwear. Her long and slender legs were completely exposed to the air, and her black high-heeled boots accentuated her long legs to the fullest. The sharp whistling sound did not stop. The air was filled with strong hormones. Shameless. Marshall coldly evaluated. Ling Qianyu said as if this was a common occurrence, this kind of place is like this. Otherwise, how can it attract guests? Marshall glanced at him and said, you men are indeed not good things. Even so small and you have this kind of thinking. Don't attack other people's children. They are still the sun at 7 or 8 in the morning. This is too hurtful to other people's self-esteem. Tang Zheng advised. It's okay. People who live in this area, if they can't adapt to these things, they are destined to not live long. Ling Qianyu said as if it was not a big deal. Tang Zheng could not help but have a whole new level of respect for him. He originally thought that he was a spoiled and obedient child. It turned out that he was wrong. In this kind of area, how could a child who grew up in this kind of family be an obedient child like an ordinary person? But before, he must have been frightened. That was why he showed a weak side. While they were talking, the dancer on the stage had already unbuttoned her thin shirt. The white skin on her chest was exposed. Crash! Her hands grabbed the corner of her shirt. With a sudden force, the thin shirt was immediately torn apart. Immediately, the screams were even more deafening. Her upper body was actually a vacuum. She did not wear any underwear. The scenery in front of her chest trembled as it was completely exposed. The screams of the guests almost blew the roof off. The dancer made all kinds of provocative movements towards the guests. It was extremely charming, causing a group of wolves to howl. "Let's go. What's there to see?" Seeing Tang Zheng's gaze turn to stare at the dancer, a raging anger rose in Marshall's heart as he unhappily urged. "Wait a moment," Tang Zheng said expressionlessly. Marshall's heart could not help but feel wronged. This man was truly unsatisfied. She had already been treated like that by him, yet he actually dared to look at another woman in such an unbridled manner in front of her. He simply did not put her in his eyes. Marshall did not notice. If it was the previous her, she would definitely not have such emotions. Even if Tang Zheng jumped onto the stage and did something with the dancer, she would not have the slightest reaction. She might even look at him a few more times. All of this had happened without her noticing. Even she herself had not noticed it. Ling Qianyu rolled her big eyes and looked meaningfully at Marshall. Then, she looked at Tang Zheng. Her eyes flickered and it was unknown what she was thinking about in her little head. Tang Zheng, however, did not know what the two of them were thinking. His gaze passed through the stage and looked towards the back of the stage. There were a few strong men with guns guarding the door to the second floor. No guests were allowed to approach. Looking up, he could not see the situation on the second floor at all. There was only one entrance on the second floor. Could it be that that person went up to the second floor? Chapter 630. The man had his head lowered, so Tang Zheng could not tell who he was. He walked down the stairs, surrounded by several people, and headed straight for the door. Tang Zheng's position was close to the aisle, and the man was getting closer and closer. Finally, Tang Zheng saw his face clearly. "Ah!" Tang Zheng could not help but exclaim in a low voice. This person was really beyond his expectations. Demon God. The other party seemed to have sensed something as well. He suddenly turned his head and looked over. His eyes were like lightning, causing one to feel intimidated. This person was actually a demon god. When he was captured by the 100 Transformation Star Lord, he actually did not die. This was out of Tang Zheng's expectations. When their eyes met, intense sparks immediately flew. The demonic god was all too familiar with Tang Zheng's face. He had dreamt of him many times and wished he could eat him alive and cut him into pieces. Back then, he carried the mission of the demon race and descended to this world so that the demon race could return to this world. He never would have thought that all of this would be ruined by this brat. Moreover, this brat even caused him to become a prisoner. Although he was still alive, he was already a slave of the 100 Transformation Star Lord. His life was in the hands of the 100 Transformation Star Lord, and he had to listen to his orders. A free man, a demon expert who had come to this world with great hope, was reduced to a prisoner just like that. The demon god's emotions could no longer be described as simply painful. "Tang Zheng, it's you." The demon god gnashed his teeth as he glared at Tang Zheng. It's me. Tang Zheng stood up, ready to attack. At the same time, he secretly gestured to Wu, indicating that she should escape at the right time. Back then, Fiend Celestial had a 7th grade golden core, which was equivalent to a 7th grade supreme power realm expert. Now, his aura was even stronger, so his cultivation had probably gone up a level. Even though Tang Zheng's strength had greatly increased and he had all kinds of magic weapons, he was absolutely not confident that he could defeat his opponent. After all, the difference in cultivation was like a natural chasm that couldn't be crossed. However, Marshall was still as steady as Mount Tai, turning a blind eye to Tang Zheng's gesture. This was not because she was stupid. She was no stranger to the demon god. When the demon god first descended into this world, she was present. It was a pity that her power was limited. She was unable to kill the demonic god back then, and that was her regret. She also understood that her strength was far inferior to that of the demon god, but she did not follow Tang Zheng's hint and wait for an opportunity to escape. She knew that there was going to be a big battle, and her duty was to protect Tang Zheng. In this kind of life and death situation, she had to stand firmly by Tang Zheng's side. Seeing that she was indifferent, Tang Zheng was secretly anxious. This stupid woman, why was she putting up a strong front at such a critical moment? Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Tang Zheng, today is the day you die. The demon god coldly said. Tang Zheng snorted coldly, not saying anything. However, he muttered in his heart. Logically speaking, if the demon god fell into the hands of the multiform star sovereign, it would be impossible for him to escape so easily. But what was he doing here? This was not the 100,000 mountains. Demon god, don't boast so shamelessly. You have already fled to this remote and desolate place. What else is there to be proud of? Tang Zheng deliberately provoked. Nonsense, how am I escaping? I'm here on official business. The demon god was indeed tricked. He was extremely proud in his heart. How could he endure being looked down upon by a mere human? Hearing that, Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat, and he asked, "What business?" You brat, you actually want to trick me? I almost fell for your trick. Humph, you're about to die, yet you still have so many thoughts. The demon god immediately reacted as if he had awoken from a dream, and said in disdain. There are so many people here, are you going to make a move in public? Tang Zheng asked without fear. Hee, are you trying to escape? I'll see what tricks you can play today. I don't want to make a move here either. After all, this is my territory. The demon god said. Your territory? Of course, but don't even think about finding out more information. I'm very happy to see you become a confused ghost. Tang Zheng had no choice but to protect Wu and Ling Qianyu as they walked out of the door. At the same time, he warned in a low voice, when we start fighting later, the two of you should immediately escape, understand? I'm not leaving. I promised Master and Mistress that I would definitely protect you. I've never been a deserter. Wu replied without hesitation. Tang Zheng was so anxious that he wanted to stomp his feet, and said hatefully, Are you stupid? Do you want to die with me? If you die, I'll die with you. Marshall's tone was still resolute. Tang Zheng was speechless. Why was this woman so stubborn? If he was lucky enough to survive this time, he would definitely teach her a lesson in the future. Ling Qianyu was still expressionless as she followed Tang Zheng step by step. Tang Zheng glanced at him, and said in a low voice, Qianyu, wait for an opportunity to escape later, do you understand? I can't do what I promised your grandfather. This person is my sworn enemy and is extremely powerful. I'm not his match, so you don't have the obligation to die with me. Ling Qianyu's calm eyes immediately flashed with a strange light. He looked at the demon god and said, just now, he said that this was his territory, which means that he is the real mastermind behind all of this. My grandfather's death is on his head, and he is my irreconcilable enemy. If you die, I won't have any hope of revenge, then what's the use of me living in this world? F***ck. Tang Zheng really wanted to curse out loud. How come these two people, one big and one small, were so stubborn and did not know how to turn around? Alright, since the two of you don't want to listen to my advice, then let's leave it to fate. If we really die, then we'll have one more companion on the road to the Yellow Springs. Tang Zheng had no choice but to do this. The few of them walked out of the nightclub and arrived at an empty forest behind the house. The demon god dismissed the others, leaving only the four of them. Are you done muttering? You're about to die, yet you still have so much nonsense to say. If you have anything to say, then say it on the road to the Yellow Springs. The demon god said with a murderous aura. Tang Zheng snorted and immediately assumed a battle stance. The War Soul sword was already tightly gripped in his hands. The demon god's eyes lit up, he stared at the War Soul sword and said, "Brat, your life is really good, you actually have a heaven-level magic treasure." As he spoke, a light flashed in his hand and a magic treasure appeared, Magic Dragon Saber, a heaven-level magic treasure, a treasure that he had found in the prehistoric heavenly tomb. Tang Zheng silently circulated his energy, adjusting his condition to its peak. His palms were already covered in cold sweat, but his expression did not change in the slightest as he stared at the demon god. Die! With a loud roar, the demon god launched his attack. The magic dragon saber released a dragon's roar, and slashed towards Tang Zheng's head. Poochie! The air had already been split apart by the blade, and the rippling ripples were directly split into two. The blade light was like the Milky Way falling from the 9 heavens, with peerless power. Block! Tang Zheng immediately used the Heaven's Flying Immortal Sword technique to block. Sparks flew in all directions as he staggered backwards. The opponent's attack was too powerful. Even though the Heaven's Flying Immortal Sword technique was extremely exquisite, it was still unable to disperse the power of the attack. The demon god laughed in ridicule. "This is just the appetizer, you can't do it, I was hoping that you could hold on for a while longer." Tang Zheng clenched his teeth and rushed forward. He soared into the air and used the momentum of his descent to stab towards his opponent. Insignificant skill. The demon god curled his lips in disdain. He waved the magic dragon saber in the air and easily blocked Tang Zheng's attack. Instead, he was like a kite with a broken string as he flew backwards in a sorry state and fell to the ground. Seeing that Tang Zheng was no match for him, Wu's face turned ashen as he shouted angrily, "You are not allowed to hurt him." "Humph, I hate people from the martial sect the most." The demon god also recognized Wu and said with a cold killing intent. With a wave of the magic dragon saber, the saber light immediately wrapped around Wu. Wu was already injured, and was not a match for the demon god. Facing such a fatal move, her attack immediately collapsed. "You are not allowed to hurt her." Seeing that she was about to lose her life under the blade, Tang Zheng rushed forward again. This time, he gave up on the War Soul sword. The War Soul sword could not harm the demon god in the slightest, so he could only use the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrow. With a wang sound, the bowstring trembled and the shooting sun arrow left the bowstring. If the demon god insisted on killing Wu, then he would definitely be injured by the shooting sun arrow. He had seen the power of the shooting sun arrow before, so he did not dare to be careless. Therefore, he immediately raised his broadsword and blocked the shooting sun arrow with a ding-dang. Marshall escaped from death, but instead of retreating, he attacked again. "You stupid woman!" Tang Zheng had no choice but to chase after him. So, 3 shooting sun arrows shot towards the demon god like a string of pearls. The demon god had no time to look around, he could only increase the distance between him and Wu, and use all his strength to deal with the shooting sun arrow. It had to be said that although the demon god's cultivation was several levels higher than Tang Zheng's, the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrow's uniqueness still posed quite a threat to him. Let's see how many more arrows you have. However, the demon god did not panic. As long as he was on guard, this kind of divine weapon would not be able to do anything to him. Not long later, the shooting sun arrow was used up, and Tang Zheng finally rushed to Wu's side. He grabbed her and threw her back, shouting, "Go to the side, I'm not dead yet, I don't need your help, woman, just stay by the side peacefully." Wu staggered to the ground and was about to rush forward again, but he realized that Tang Zheng was already fighting with the demon god. Without the shooting sun arrow, the divine weapon, Tang Zheng's fighting strength was greatly reduced, and the war soul sword was no longer enough to deal with the demon god. "Hee, brat, use all of your moves. You brat, your life is really good. Your cultivation is not high, but you have such a high treasure. This time, I really got lucky," the demon god said enviously. Although his cultivation was high, he had only brought one magic treasure from the sky beyond heaven, and that was the blood blade. This demon dragon saber was something he had painstakingly found in the prehistoric heavenly tomb. In the cultivation world, magic treasure were also very rare, especially high-grade magic treasure. This was because there were very few weapon refiner in the cultivation world, and even fewer weapon refiners who could refine high-grade magic treasure. Tang Zheng did not understand this very well. Although he had many divine weapons, he did not think that they were that amazing. But in the eyes of the demon god, he was simply a tycoon. Chapter 631. Staring at this violent dragon soul, Tang Zheng suddenly felt a surge of warmth from the dragon mark on his forehead. Then, with an even louder dragon mark, the double-clawed golden dragon transformed into a golden light and rushed out of Tang Zheng's forehead. This scene was too inconceivable. The demon god was stunned. He knew very well that the reason why the demon dragon saber was a heaven-level magic treasure was because it imprisoned the soul of a young dragon. Even with his life experience, he had never seen a real dragon. It was said that the real dragon had disappeared. However, the golden dragon in front of him was so lifelike that it made people feel fear. Although his aura was not weak and he was very confident, he still had an instinctive fear in the face of such a sacred creature. The double-clawed golden dragon grew in the wind. Before Tang Zheng could use his power to control it, it had already swung its head and tail towards the demon dragon saber. Boom! The golden dragon collided with the demon dragon saber, causing the demon dragon saber to tremble violently. The dragon soul also let out a high-pitched cry. However, there was a sense of fear in this cry. As the owner of the demon dragon saber, the demon god naturally knew what this fear meant. In other words, the power of the demon dragon saber could not be used at all. What the hell? Why is there a golden dragon? The demon god cursed bitterly as he activated his true chi and roared. Wung wung wung. The demon dragon saber tried to resist, but the double-clawed golden dragon had already wrapped around the saber body, making it unable to move. Even if the demon god tried to resist, it was useless. No, if this stalemate continues, the demon dragon saber will be destroyed. The demon god cursed and immediately tried to put the demon dragon saber back into his sumru pouch. However, no matter how he urged his power, the demon dragon saber was indifferent. The double-clawed golden dragon bound the demon dragon saber, making it impossible for it to escape. Tang Zheng felt the excitement in the golden dragon's body. With a thought, he understood its intention. It wants to devour the dragon soul in the demon dragon saber. Although he did not know why the golden dragon had such a reaction, since it had such a strong desire, Tang Zheng could not just stand by and watch. Thus, he tapped the tip of his foot and controlled the war soul to stab the demon god, leaving him no time to deal with the demon dragon saber. Tang Zheng, you're courting death. The demon god flew into a rage and struck out with his palm. However, facing the war soul sword that could cut off hair, his palms were clearly at a disadvantage. With a few clashing sounds, the war soul sword and the demon god's palm clashed several times, forcing the demon god to stagger back, and the demon dragon blade almost slipped out of his hand. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the double-clawed golden dragon roared excitedly and opened its mouth to bite the demon dragon saber. Gotcha! Its sharp teeth bit down on the blade, and a golden light poured out of the demon dragon blade and was absorbed into the golden dragon's body. Demon god was shocked and shouted, "What are you doing? My dragon soul!" The golden light that poured out was the dragon soul, and it had been shattered by the golden dragon. In the blink of an eye, the golden light in the demon dragon knife had completely disappeared, and the light of the demon dragon knife immediately dimmed. The double-clawed golden dragon's body glowed with golden light, and it grew a few more meters in the blink of an eye, reaching a length of nearly 10 meters. No wonder the golden dragon is so excited. It turns out that after absorbing the dragon's soul, its strength can greatly increase. Tang Zheng could clearly feel that the surging energy in the double-clawed golden dragon's body was becoming more and more powerful. The golden dragon soared into the sky, and the huge dragon god waved in the air, causing the demon god to retreat in shock. Roar! The golden dragon roared towards the sky, and the dragon's roar shook the surroundings. Whiz! The golden dragon's body flashed and disappeared into the war soul sword. Without a doubt, the feeling the war soul sword gave people was getting stronger and stronger. The demon god forgot to attack for a moment as he stared blankly at the demon dragon saber in his hand. Without the dragon soul, it no longer lived up to its name, and it had turned from a heaven-level magic treasure into an ordinary weapon. Tang Zheng did not give him the chance to be distracted, and waved the war soul sword to attack. Ka-cha! With a crisp sound, the demon dragon saber was cut into two by the war soul sword. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up, his confidence increased, and he chased after him. The demon god's eyes flashed with sadness. The demon dragon saber was a magic treasure that he had spent a lot of effort to obtain, but it was destroyed just like that. His eyes were red as he roared, "Tang Zheng, you and I are irreconcilable enemies." As soon as his voice fell, his hair and beard spread out, as if he had gone mad, emitting a berserk aura. Whoosh whoosh, the demon god's feet stirred up wind as his body slowly rose into the air. Not long after, he stood in the air and looked down at Tang Zheng from above. His killing intent covered the sky and covered the earth as he attacked Tang Zheng like a tornado. Tang Zheng was like a small boat in the middle of the sea, swayed by the waves of killing intent. Tang Zheng's expression was grim as he stared at the demon god standing in the air. Suddenly, his pupils constricted as he discovered something under his feet. He did not rely on his legs to stay in the air. He was able to stay in the air because of the magic treasure under his feet, the blood blade. The blood blade was a magic treasure that the demon god had refined for many years. It was only an earth-level magic treasure. Ever since he obtained the demon dragon saber, he rarely used the blood blade. But now that the demon dragon saber was destroyed, he had no choice but to use his old partner. The power of the blood blade could not compete with the demon dragon saber, but the demon god's cultivation was enough to make up for all the shortcomings. Therefore, when he launched an attack from above, a bloody light soared into the sky and attacked Tang Zheng from all directions. Boom! Tang Zheng retreated in a sorry state. Although the power of the war soul sword had increased a lot, it was still difficult to deal with this attack. Puff! The true qi in his body surged crazily as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Take my second attack! The demon god roared. The second attack followed, and Tang Zheng hurriedly retreated. The ground under his feet turned into scorched earth and black smoke rose. Tang Zheng knew very well that he had used up all his advantages, but he was still not a match for the demon god. If he continued to fight, he would definitely be the one to suffer. Thus, he shouted loudly, "Go!" Boom! The four symbols venerable appeared out of thin air. This was the fusion of the four symbols venerable. When it descended, it had its own aura. The demon dragon's pupils suddenly shrank. He still remembered this huge monster clearly and exclaimed, "You actually brought it with you." Tang Zheng snorted coldly, but did not pay attention to him. He knew that even if he relied on the four symbols venerable, he did not have much of a chance of winning. However, escaping was not too difficult, especially since the four symbols venerable was impenetrable and could protect them very well. Tang Zheng leaped into the four symbols venerable's body, and with a grab of his giant hand, Wu and the dumbstruck Ling Qianyu were caught in his palm. The four symbols venerable's other hand was not empty either. As its footsteps continuously changed, it had already circled around the area, and several shooting sun arrows appeared in its hand. Even if he had to escape, Tang Zheng would not give up on such a treasure. Otherwise, leaving the demon god behind would be too much of a loss. Stop right there. The demon god immediately saw through Tang Zheng's intentions, and roared in exasperation, continuously attacking. However, the four symbols venerable was impenetrable, and this kind of attack could not hurt it at all. Tang Zheng and the other two could be said to be unharmed under the protection of the four symbols venerable. The demon god is a huge threat. He has come to this area rashly, so there must be some unspeakable secret. I have to capture him and find out the real reason. Tang Zheng thought silently. However, it was easier said than done to capture the demon god alive. With his cultivation, it was impossible to do so. Seeing the demon god persistently chasing after them, Tang Zheng suddenly had an idea and smiled maliciously. However, he was inside the four symbols venerable's body, so the demon god could not see this meaningful smile. Otherwise, he might have stopped his pursuit. The four symbols venerable's every step forward was like an earthquake, causing the entire town to tremble. The residents of the town were already screaming in fright, and there were people running in all directions. However, in the next second, they were dumbfounded as they stared blankly at the huge creature crossing over their heads. Although it was night time, they could still vaguely see the huge creature's appearance. It was simply a giant among giants. Those experienced mercenaries who killed people like flies were also completely stunned at this moment. Their strong nerves were completely destroyed by this scene. The four symbols venerable flashed past and rushed out from the other side of the town, closely followed by a pursuer who was flying in the air. Boom boom boom. Out of the town, there was a continuous mountain range. The four symbols venerable had the advantage of being tall, so it was like walking on flat ground. However, the demon god was not slow either. There was no obstruction in the air, and it continuously attacked, one attack after another on the four symbols venerable. However, all of this was like scratching an itch, unable to damage the four symbols venerable's foundation. The demon god continued to attack tirelessly, one in front and one behind, crossing over mountains and ridges, completely turning the area upside down. That night, none of the forces in the area had a good night's sleep, because the huge commotion made them feel like they were facing a great enemy. It was as if they were facing the end of the world, and they were in imminent danger. Everyone was afraid that these murderous guys would come to their territory, and then they would really be in trouble. Of course, many people also wanted to know who these guys who had suddenly appeared were. This kind of terrifying strength was completely beyond their imagination. The two of them ran tirelessly, and no one knew how far they had run. Gradually, the sky turned white, and the light of the morning sun shone on both of them. Fresh air blew in their faces. Seeing that the demon god was still chasing relentlessly, a cold killing intent flashed in Tang Zheng's eyes. He thought to himself, "Demon god, you're really stupid. This time, I'll make sure you don't return." In front of them was a towering mountain with dense trees. The four symbols venerable charged toward the mountain without any hesitation. The demon god gave chase with all his might, exhaustion already appearing on his face. Although his cultivation was high, after a night of pursuit, he was still exhausted. In fact, Tang Zheng's mental state was even better than his. After all, he was only controlling the four symbols venerable, so his physical fatigue was much weaker than the demon god's. The demon god had already given up flying in the air, and instead landed on the mountain roads to give chase. This way, he could save a lot of energy. However, he was still terrified by the four symbols venerable's speed. He thought to himself that if he had this big guy, then perhaps he would no longer be controlled by the 100 Faces Star Lord. Chapter 632. A figure rose into the air from the forest and eventually floated in mid-air, looking down at the people rushing up from the foot of the mountain. Huh! Suddenly, he cried out in surprise as he stared at the four symbols venerable, it's actually that brat Tang Zheng. This person was Tian Chanzi. Tang Zheng deliberately lured the demon god to this mountain in order to use Tian Chanzi's power to capture him alive. Finally seeing Tian Chanzi, Tang Zheng really felt lucky to have survived a disaster. He couldn't wait to rush up and hug him. The demon god was suddenly startled and immediately braked. He stopped and looked at Tian Chanzi in mid-air in horror. He was no stranger to Tian Chanzi and knew that there was a big gap between him and Tian Chanzi. He rolled his eyes and immediately realized that he had fallen into Tang Zheng's trap. Tang Zheng used his anger to lure him in step by step and finally led him to Tian Chanzi. He had been chasing for a whole night and was very tired. Tian Chanzi was waiting for him to tire himself out. He was even less of a match for him. Therefore, the demon god did not hesitate to turn around and immediately fled as if there was oil under his feet. Tang Zheng laughed and jumped out of the four symbols venerable. He said to Tian Chanzi in mid-air, Tian Chanzi, I'll leave him to you. Alas, running for a whole night is really tiring. I knew it was not a good thing for you to come here. As expected, you attracted such an enemy the moment we met. You are not willing to let me go until you squeeze the last drop of oil out of me. Heaven Monk said angrily. However, he didn't remain indifferent. He descended from the sky and directly blocked the demon god's path. A look of panic flashed across the demon god's face, but he immediately pretended to be calm and said, Tian Chanzi, so you've been hiding here. My master has been looking for you. Huh, your master is the 100 Change Star Lord, right? Humph, you are my master's enemy. You will die without a burial. If you are tactful and obediently allow yourself to be captured, perhaps Su Ren can still let you live. The demon god threatened, taking advantage of Su Ren's prestige. He really had no other way, so he could only come up with this plan, hoping to scare Tian Chanzi. Hee, do you think I, Tian Chanzi, am scared? It's true that the 100 Transformation Starlord is powerful, but distant water cannot put out a nearby fire. You can forget about escaping today no matter what. Who said I was going to run away? The demon god raised his head and asked arrogantly. Didn't you just run away? Tian Chanzi asked jokingly. The demonic god blushed and retorted, nonsense. Master is nearby and will definitely hear the commotion here. He will rush over immediately. When that time comes, it will be the time of your death. Tian Chanzi didn't believe his words. If the 100 Transformation Starlord was really in this area, then how could Tang Zheng have the opportunity to escape here? All of this was just the Fiend Celestial using his connections to intimidate others. Huh, is it? Then shout with all your strength and call him out for me to see. Tian Chanzi calmly crossed his arms and said. The demon god's face stiffened. He immediately knew that his trick had been seen through. Suddenly, he was at a loss. What's wrong? Can't you call him out? Then I won't be polite. Tian laughed and walked toward the demon god casually. The demon god quickly retreated and said in a threatening manner, Tian, don't be arrogant. Our cultivation is not much different. If you push me too far, I will fight to the death. Fight to the death? Humph, you have to have that ability first. Do you think our cultivation is about the same? You think too highly of yourself. Back then, when you came from the outer sky, you were a 7th grade golden core. Now you have reached the 9th grade golden core. This is indeed fast, but you want to show off in front of me? You are asking to be humiliated. Tian said disdainfully. The demon god panicked. Tian could see his cultivation at a glance, which meant that his cultivation was definitely higher than his. In other words, Tian was already in the Yuanying realm. The demon god's face was ashen. It turned out that Tian was not useless during this period of time. His cultivation had also improved by leaps and bounds. The demon god's already low confidence was on the verge of collapse. What to do, what to do? How to get away? Even if he was resourceful, he was at his wit's end at this moment. I know you won't give up, and I won't waste my breath to persuade you like this. So, I will choose to attack directly. After saying this, Tian walked toward the demon god as if he was taking a stroll in the park. But with every step he took, the demon god's face became uglier. With every step Tian took, the momentum on his body became more and more fierce. Finally, the demon god could not withstand this momentum and staggered back, saying, Tian, I am a man of the 100 Faces Star Lord. If you dare to touch me, he will not let you go. Tian smiled coldly. He was already 3 steps away from the demon god. No matter how fast the demon god retreated, Tian speed was even faster. Tian raised a finger and gently pointed. The demon god's body immediately froze. He was firmly locked in by the chi movement of this finger. There was no way he could escape. I will fight you to the death. The demon god was helpless and completely erupted. His face was ashen as he raised his blood blade and slashed at Tian Tian expression did not change. He shook his head and said, Your strength is ultimately too weak. Tang Zheng, look carefully. This is the ultimate move of Transcendent Flying Immortal, the 6th move, Transcendent Flying Immortal. The 6 moves of Transcendent Flying Immortal each had their own merits and strengths. Tang Zheng had already comprehended the 5th move, Return to Origin. However, there was no movement for the 6th move. He had wanted to make a breakthrough more than once, but he had been stuck. At this moment, after hearing Tian words, his eyes immediately lit up as he stared at Tian intently. With a point of his finger, Tian figure became ethereal, as if he had disappeared from the demon god's sight. In fact, he did not disappear. His finger was like the tip of a sharp sword, stabbing at the enemy without any fancy moves. It was ethereal and mysterious. It was like a sword that flew from the heavens. It was fast, fierce, but it did not lose its agility and sharpness. In short, this strike was a fusion of the essence of the first 5 moves. Tang Zheng could only sense a mysterious feeling from it, but he was unable to truly grasp the trajectory of the strike. This was because, the strike did not have a specific trajectory. All trajectories would fall into a conventional pattern, giving the opponent a chance to guard against it. As for Transcendent Flying Immortal, it had no trajectory, so there was no trace to be found. Such a sword move was a true superior sword move that was impossible to defend against. Tang Zheng attempted to switch places with the demon god, but he sadly realized that he could not escape the strike no matter what. The demon god was the same. A sense of helplessness swept over him as he resigned himself to his fate and used all his quintessential chi to fight with all his might. Boom! The demon god flew up into the air and then fell into the mountain forest like a meteorite. Dust and smoke rose everywhere as he smashed into a huge crater. Tian Chanzi clapped his hands and said casually, "It's settled. The only advantage of holding it in this remote and desolate place is that I can concentrate on practicing martial arts. Because, there really is not much else to kill time." Tang Zheng felt deeply shocked. Although his cultivation had improved rapidly, compared to Tian Chanzi, it was still the difference between heaven and earth. Facing the demon god, he could only run for his life, but Tian Chanzi had dealt with the demon god while talking and laughing. This cultivation made Tang Zheng particularly envious. "Hee, you brat came quite quickly, but you also caused such a big problem. You really can't rest for a day." Tian Chanzi grabbed onto Tang Zheng's neck and laughed sinisterly. His gaze swept across Wu, and he laughed meaningfully. He patted Tang Zheng's shoulder and said, "Yo, you brat actually became enlightened, and even chased after this great beauty. I've already told you, your body is special. If you want to live, you have to continuously expand your territory and embrace more beauties." Cough cough. Hearing that, Tang Zheng immediately coughed awkwardly. Tian Chanzi's words were becoming more and more unrestrained, to actually say such things in front of a girl. He immediately turned his head to look at Wu, only to see her face flushed red, staring at Tian Chanzi in anger but not daring to say anything. Tian Chanzi's small test just now had broadened Wu Da's horizons, and he once again recognized the power of cultivators. Speak less, speak less. Tang Zheng was deeply afraid that Wu Da would fly into a rage, so he hurriedly advised. Tian Chanzi shrugged his shoulders, glanced at Ling Qianyu, and said in surprise, "Who is this brat?" "He was taken in by chance," Tang Zheng said. As soon as he finished speaking, a putong sound startled Tang Zheng. He looked at Ling Qianyu in shock and asked, "What are you doing?" Ling Qianyu knelt down in front of Tang Zheng, his eyes filled with determination and hope. But why was he kneeling like this? Could it be that he was scared silly? Ling Qianyu, peng, without saying a word, he kowtowed 3 times to Tang Zheng. When he raised his head, his forehead was already bleeding, showing the strength of these 3 kowtows. Tang Zheng was at a loss, and hurriedly asked, "Why are you kowtowing to me?" "Master, please accept disciple Ling Qianyu's kowtow." Ling Qianyu finished speaking, and with both hands, he crawled at Tang Zheng's feet. "Master?" Tang Zheng rolled his eyes, not understanding what was going on. "Yes, Ling Qianyu willingly became Master's disciple, and for the rest of my life, Master will dismantle everything," Ling Qianyu firmly said. "Stop, stop, stop." Tang Zheng hurriedly waved his hand. "Are you scared silly? When did I become your master? I just acknowledged you as my master, so you just became my master," Ling Qianyu said. Wu also looked at Ling Qianyu in astonishment. In the middle of the night, Ling Qianyu did not say a word, as if he was frightened. Who would have thought that he would do such a thing? It was truly unexpected. Tian Chanzi watched this show with interest, and said, "Ha, he is very sincere. Is it appropriate for you to reject him like this?" Tang Zheng rolled his eyes, and said, "What are you talking about? With my little cultivation, how can I be qualified to be his master? Moreover, I don't want to accept a disciple. If you don't accept him, then it would be good for me to stay by your side as an errand boy. Let me tell you, the people of the witch clan are loyal, but their heads are like wooden fish, they are not flexible. I think this brat is quite smart, keeping him by your side will save you a lot of trouble," the heaven monk said. Chapter 633. After listening to Ling Qianyu's words, the atmosphere instantly cooled down. He had already seen Tian Chanzi's strength, yet he still dared to speak so carelessly. That was really bold. Tian Chanzi immediately became as cold as ice, as if he wanted to choose a person to swallow, and fiercely stared at Ling Qianyu. Ling Qianyu's face immediately became ugly, as she really couldn't bear Tian Chanzi's power. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, a burst of hearty laughter broke the awkward atmosphere. Tang Zheng held his stomach and laughed, almost unable to straighten his back. Ling Qianyu, good job, this style is quite to my taste. Tang Zheng praised, giving a thumbs up. Tian Chanzi was deflated, this kind of scene was rare, and Tang Zheng was heartlessly happy. Tian Chanzi helplessly stared at Tang Zheng, and said, "Boy, you don't give me any face, making fun of me in front of outsiders." Tang Zheng laughed, and put his arm around Tian Chanzi's shoulder, and said, "You can't be so petty, are you really angry? He's still a child, if you take a child seriously, you'll be laughed at by others." Tian Chanzi snorted, and fiercely stared at Ling Qianyu, and said, "There aren't many good people by your side, and now there's this little guy. Little guy, listen carefully, he's not as strong as I am, and he's still a young man in his 20s. You're too blind to take him as your master." Ling Qianyu kept biting her lips, and secretly glanced at Tang Zheng, and said, "Although he's not as strong as you now, I believe that in the future he'll definitely be stronger than you." Tian Chanzi was speechless. "I'm not going to waste my time with you guys. If I say a few more words to you guys, I'll lose a few years of my life. Let's bring the demon god back for interrogation first." Tian Chanzi quickly changed the topic. In a flash, he arrived in front of the crater. The demon god was lying in the middle of the crater, unconscious. "Guards, why are you still hiding there? Come and take the captives," Tian Chanzi shouted into the woods. With a crash, a large group of people rushed out of the forest. They were majestic, and the person in the lead was the elder of the sorcerer tribe. The elder took 3 steps in 2 steps and arrived in front of Tang Zheng. He was about to kneel down and salute when Tang Zheng hurriedly held his shoulders and said, "Elder, there is no need to be so courteous. Lord Envoy, it's great to see you again." The elder said excitedly, and the others nodded. Wu and Tian Chanzi had already seen Tang Zheng's prestige in the sorcerer tribe, so they did not find it strange. Only Ling Qianyu opened his eyes wide and stared straight at Tang Zheng, his eyes full of splendor. He had already made up his mind. Although Tang Zheng did not admit that he was his master, he had already made up his mind. He had to consider himself as his disciple. One day, Tang Zheng would be moved by his sincerity. Ling Qianyu's act of acknowledging him as his master was not done on a whim, but after careful consideration. What he saw and heard tonight was even more eye-opening than what he had seen in the past 10 years of his life. Originally, he thought that his grandfather was already a very powerful person, but in front of these people, his grandfather was simply unable to withstand a single blow, as if he was an ant. This caused Ling Qianyu to be deeply shocked, and a strong thought rushed into his mind: he must become such a person. Thus, the act of acknowledging him as his master was logical. His choice to defeat Tang Zheng as his master was not on impulse, but also after weighing the pros and cons. The most important point was that Tang Zheng had promised his grandfather. This kind of close relationship made Tang Zheng his first choice. Ling Qianyu was not discouraged, because from the beginning, he did not expect Tang Zheng to agree to him immediately. This was a protracted battle. He was confident that he would be the final winner. The demon god had already been tied up by the dragon trapping rope and was carried up the mountain by a few witch tribe warriors. After a while, everyone stood at the peak of the mountain and looked into the distance. They could see everything in a bird's eye view. This mountain peak was the highest point in this place. Tang Zheng looked around and asked curiously, "You have occupied this mountain peak, and no one else came to disturb you?" "Hee, it turns out that this place is filled with ferocious beasts and is deserted. No one came here at all. Ever since we occupied this place, we set up a few formations outside. Even if someone wanted to enter the mountain, it would be impossible." Tian Chanzi explained confidently. Tang Zheng suddenly came to a realization. No wonder Tian Chanzi was able to avoid the surveillance of all forces with so many people. It turned out that he had chosen such a dangerous place. It must have been hard on you to hide here. Tang Zheng sighed. The elder immediately shook his head like a rattle drum, and said, Lord Envoy, you are exaggerating. It is not hard for us at all. To be able to leave the 10,000 huge mountains and get rid of the imprisonment and comfort of the witch tribe for generations, this is already a great kindness to us. We, the witch tribe, are very satisfied. Hearing this, Tang Zheng's heart surged. It was his great honor to have such a group of loyal fans. Why would he worry about the difficulties and obstacles ahead? He had to do everything he could to make the shaman tribe stand at the top of the world, the peak of the strong. After a long separation, the two sides finally met again and chatted for a long time. Tian Chanzi finally could not help but interrupt, let's get down to business first and deal with the demon god. Why did you have a conflict with the demon god? Wasn't he captured by the 100 Faces Star Lord? He has already accepted the 100 Faces Star Lord as his master. I met him in a small town not far away. It seems that he came here specially and even seized control of this area. Tang Zheng said in a deep voice. Tian Chanzi raised his thick eyebrows, and immediately opened his eyes wide in shock, saying, the 100 Faces Star Lord will definitely not speak without thinking. Since he was ordered to come here, then he must have some ulterior motives. Tang Zheng nodded his head, I think so too, so I wanted to investigate thoroughly. However, the demon god is too strong, so I could only be chased by him like a headless fly. Kid, you're not bad. You were able to hold on for so long under his attacks. You deliberately led him here. Tian Chanzi patted Tang Zheng's shoulder and praised. Fortunately, we have you. Otherwise, we would have really lost our lives. Tang Zheng said with lingering fear. After a while, Tang Zheng, Tian Chanzi, and Elder Wu He came to the room where the demon god was imprisoned. As for Ling Qianyu, she had already been called away by the witch tribe to rest. The demon god had already awakened. He stared at them with fire spewing out of his eyes and roared, You dare to treat me like this, Master will definitely not let you off. Hee, you've already become a captive, yet you're still so arrogant. You don't have the self-awareness of a captive. Tang Zheng said jokingly. Then, with a thought, the dragon trapping rope suddenly tightened. The demon god's face immediately contorted in pain. He shouted hysterically, Stop, stop now. Humph, now you know what's good for you. Know your place, or else you'll be the one to suffer. Moreover, if you don't tell the truth, we can use the soul-searching technique. At that time, the one to suffer will be you. You should be very clear about the dangers of the soul-searching technique. Tang Zheng threatened. The demon god shrunk into a ball, cowering, and hurriedly nodded, I know. The demon god knew that even if he did not say anything, the soul-searching technique would still expose all his secrets. Moreover, if he was used on the soul-searching technique, there was a high possibility that he would become an idiot. That would be worse than death. It's good that you know. Then let me ask you, why did you come here? I was ordered by Master. Oh, no, 100 Faces Star Sovereign to take charge of this area. Everyone has to listen to me. At critical moments, I can mobilize these people. Why do you need these ordinary people? Tang Zheng was puzzled. The demon god hesitated. A fierce glint flashed in Tang Zheng's eyes. The demon god was shocked and hurriedly said, 100 Faces Star Sovereign is preparing to use the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array to summon the demon race to this world. What? Tang Zheng and the others cried out in alarm at the same time, and their expressions completely changed. The Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array required the blood of tens of thousands of people to succeed. This was the price of tens of thousands of people's lives. It was harmful to the harmony of the world. However, they did not expect Hundred Faces Star Sovereign to be so deranged. He was determined to activate this array. Many innocent people in this area would pay the price with their lives. Humph, you are so vicious. Tang Zheng said coldly, full of killing intent. It's not my idea, it's Hundred Faces Star Sovereign's. The demon god hurriedly denied, afraid that Tang Zheng would blame him. Don't try to brush yourself off so cleanly. Isn't the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array the array that you and Lewis colluded to activate in the past? Moreover, you were the one who offered this method to Hundred Faces Star Sovereign, right? Tang Zheng's words hit the nail on the head. The demon god's eyes immediately became flustered. He stammered, I was also forced to, you are really unscrupulous in order to let the demon race descend to this world. If the demon race descends, what other plans do you have? Hundred Faces Star Sovereign wants to rule the demon race and expand his influence step by step. Eventually, he will rule this world. What a grand plan. Tang Zheng sneered. He once again felt Hundred Faces Star Sovereign's wild ambition. The original plan. When did you activate the array? The demon god shook his head, this plan has just been implemented. I wanted to rule this area first and then find the corresponding manpower. Unfortunately, all of this has just begun and it has been ruined by you. What, do you feel that it's a pity? I wouldn't dare. The demon god hurriedly shook his head. I see that you don't have anything to be afraid of, but since you let me know of your plan, how can I turn a blind eye to it? You can forget about ruling over this area. Tang Zheng said resolutely and decisively. Yes, I will definitely not come back. The demon god nodded. Do you think I will let you go so easily? The demon god panicked, I have already told you everything I know. You still want to kill me? Of course I won't kill you, but you are still a big disaster. Tian Chanzi, do you have a way to cripple his cultivation? Tian Chanzi nodded, of course there is. The demon race is also a public enemy in the cultivation world. Last time, he was lucky enough to escape. This time, he won't be so lucky. No! The demon god screamed. Crippling his cultivation was more painful than taking his life. Do it. Tang Zheng said. Just as Heaven Monk was about to make his move, suddenly, the demon god's entire body started to tremble violently. His scream stopped abruptly, and what replaced it was a painful groan. His pupils started to turn red, and his veins started to swim under his skin like small snakes. Chapter 634. What was going on? They looked at each other. Didn't Tian Chanzi not make a move yet? How did he become like this? Demon God, what's wrong with you? Tang Zheng quickly asked. Hearing this, the demon god suddenly raised his head. His eyes had already turned crimson red. His throat made a series of strange sounds, and then he laughed strangely. You guys are really too annoying. You actually came to ruin my plan again. This voice was completely different from the demon god's voice. A person suddenly changed the tone of his voice. What the hell? Tang Zheng and Tian Chanzi's hearts trembled. Their faces became dignified because they recognized the owner of this voice, Hundred Faces Star Lord. Hearing the Hundred Faces Star Lord's voice from the demon god, was this strange? Of course, it was too strange. Demon god, don't play tricks. Do you think we will let you get away with this? The Great Elder said angrily. He didn't know the Hundred Faces Star Lord, so he naturally didn't realize the seriousness of the matter. A group of ignorant people. Hundred Faces Star Lord, don't need to play tricks. The demon god moved his lips and said condescendingly. Tang Zheng and Tian Chanzi looked at each other. Tian Chanzi hurriedly asked, Hundred Faces Star Lord, why are you in his body? Of course I am in his body to supervise him. As my servant, he had to be absolutely loyal to me. However, he was too cowardly and actually betrayed me, revealing my plan. I will definitely not be merciful to traitors. The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign said with a murderous aura. They looked at each other. They had never heard of such a strange spell that could control a person like this. This was an ancient secret technique used by the 100 Faces Star Lord. He attached a part of his divine sense to the demon god without anyone noticing. Even the demon god didn't know that he was being monitored by the 100 Faces Star Lord. As long as he betrayed the 100 Faces Star Lord, this secret technique would be triggered and the demon god's divine sense would be activated. What do you want? Tang Zheng asked. Traitors, of course, have to face the consequences of betrayal. The 100 Transformation Star Lord said firmly, as for you, the day we meet again is not far away. When that time comes, it will be the day of your death. Just as he finished speaking, an even sharper scream came out of the demon god's mouth. This time, it was the demon god's voice. No! The demon god let out a heart-wrenching scream, but his scream was instantly drowned out by another voice. Boom! A loud sound rang out. The demonic god exploded into pieces, turning into a lump of flesh and blood that flew in all directions. Yeah! They couldn't help but cry out in alarm. They quickly dodged and were almost stained by the demon god's flesh and blood. The room was filled with the remains of the demon blood. Looking at this scene, everyone was stunned for a moment. A 9th-grade Golden Core expert had died just like that. The 100 Transformation Star-Lord was truly vicious and merciless. He was truly willing to give up even such an expert so easily. Lord Envoy, what do we do now? The elder asked. Tang Zheng glanced at Tian Chanzi and said, since the 100 Transformation Star-Lord already knows that his plan has been exposed, he will definitely find another way to let the demon clan descend. Then how can we stop him? Although she had already left the martial sect, she still subconsciously did not wish to see the demon clan return. In fact, she did not wish to see any cultivator return. Tang Zheng shook his head. I'm afraid there's no way for the time being, we're not his match. I just hope that when the other party moves, there will be some movement, so that we can be on guard in advance. Don't be so pessimistic. With the death of the demon god, the 100 Transformation Star-Lord's plan to use the Mountain River blood sacrifice array in this area will temporarily fail. Before he finds another new method, or before he finds another 10,000 people, we are safe. Tian Chanzi corrected and encouraged. Tang Zheng secretly sighed, even though he said that, he was too passive, but the reality was that he was helpless, and that was the only thing he could do for the time being. Also, since you know about his ambitions, being on guard is not the only way out. Attacking is the best strategy. Tian Chanzi reminded. Tang Zheng revealed a suspicious look, and said, our cultivation is not as good as his. How do we attack, aren't we courting death? He still remembered how he was chased by the 100 Transformation Star-Lord back then, and how he was barely able to escape from the prehistoric heavenly tomb. You're an idiot. Tian Chanzi pointed at Tang Zheng's head, we are increasing our own strength, isn't this also a type of attack? When the time comes for the decisive battle, we will have more people and be stronger. This will definitely pose a greater threat to the 100 Transformation Star-Lord. Tang Zheng's heart moved. What Tian Chanzi said was indeed a method. But what was the true fighting power in his hands? Which clan? He only had the Witch clan, and only the Witch clan could contend against the 100 Transformation Star-Lord. But the key point was that the Witch clan was still too weak. Although they were all cultivating the chaotic golden body technique and their speed of improvement was not weak, the difference between them and the 100 Transformation Star-Lord was still too great. Lord Envoy, it's all because we're useless. We can't help you solve your problems. The elder seemed to have seen through Tang Zheng's predicament and said in shame. Tang Zheng waved his hand, and said, "How can I blame you? Because of the restrictions, you guys were unable to cultivate in the past, and now you guys are already doing very well. Sai, although the chaotic golden body technique is good, our cultivation technique is too simple. If there are more cultivation techniques, our cultivation speed might be even faster." The elder sighed helplessly. A light flashed in Tang Zheng's eyes, and he subconsciously looked at Tian Chanzi. Seeing Tang Zheng looking at him, Tian Chanzi spread his hands and said, "Don't look at me. Unless all of them are willing to join Kingsaman, I can't teach them the cultivation techniques of our sect. This is the rule of Kingsaman, and I can't break it." Tang Zheng already knew Tian Chanzi's stubbornness and insistence on this matter. One of the conditions that he was willing to teach Fang Shishir was that she had to join Kingsaman. Even if the situation had changed now, with his temper, he would not make an exception. In fact, Tian Chanzi misunderstood Tang Zheng's intention. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, "I'm not thinking about you. I have another idea." "What idea?" Tian Chanzi asked curiously. The others also stared at him without blinking. Tang Zheng laughed and said, "I've already thought of a solution to the problem of the cultivation techniques. Cultivation techniques are not cabbages that can be found everywhere. Especially in this world, most of the cultivation techniques have been brought to the outland with the cultivators. Where are you going to find them?" Tian Chanzi questioned. "I have a plan. Don't keep us in suspense, just tell us the truth." Seeing that Tang Zheng did not seem to be joking, Tian Chanzi immediately became interested. Of course, Tang Zheng could not make up a cultivation technique himself. With his cultivation level, he could not do that. But he had a treasure trove. Langya Pavilion. Yes, Langya Pavilion, the Dragon Clan's treasure trove of Langya Pavilion. He had brought back 3 powerful cultivation techniques from Langya Pavilion, which were suitable for men, women, and beasts respectively. With these cultivation techniques, wouldn't the current problem be solved? Moreover, there were still 16 floors of Langya Pavilion that he had not set foot on, and there were countless treasures there. As long as his cultivation level of Dragon God technique improved, he would have countless treasures. "Don't be in such a hurry, guess what I have in mind first." Tang Zheng deliberately teased Tian Chanzi. Tian Chanzi stared at him suspiciously and said, "From what I know about you, you shouldn't have a solution." "Oh, then you know too little about me. TSK, do you miss the days when you were in my head and knew everything? Get lost, I don't miss it. I think you're getting more and more arrogant, aren't you?" Tian Chanzi deliberately put on a dark face. "Huh, you just said a few words and you're already angry. You don't look like an expert at all." "Alright, since you can't wait to know, I'll tell you. I found 3 very powerful cultivation techniques." Tang Zheng showed off with an unfathomable expression. "TSK, very powerful? Don't brag." Tian Chanzi questioned. Tang Zheng shrugged his shoulders and said, "Is it very powerful? You can identify it yourself." With that, he casually threw out 3 sets of cultivation techniques that appeared in front of Tian Chanzi out of thin air. Tian Chanzi hurriedly caught them. With a sweep of his gaze, he saw 3 ancient scrolls. They were the God-killing scroll, the wondrous art and the heavenly dipper 36 absolutes. The name is quite vague. Tian Chanzi said as he slowly opened the God-killing scroll. His pupils suddenly constricted as he focused on reading, his expression becoming more and more serious. Tang Zheng seemed to have known that he would have such a reaction. He waved to the other 2 and said, "Let's go out. This room is filled with the remains of the demon god. It's not a good place." The 2 of them walked out and looked at Tang Zheng curiously. Wu could not help but ask, "Are those 3 sets of cultivation techniques real?" The elder also stared straight at Tang Zheng. This was related to the development of the witch clan, so he was very concerned about it. What? Do you really think I would use fake things to fool him? What's more, with his insight and cultivation, how could he be fooled by fake things? Wu did not know exactly how high Tian Chanzi's cultivation was, but in short, it was very, very high. It was not an easy task to deceive him under his fiery eyes of truth. However, she spent most of her time by Tang Zheng's side, so she really did not understand where he got these 3 sets of cultivation techniques. Moreover, he was like a swindler who sold fake cultivation techniques. One had to know that there were not many martial arts techniques in this world, and they were extremely precious, let alone cultivation techniques. However, the elder did not doubt Tang Zheng, because the witch clan believed in their lord envoy without reservation. Whoosh! Suddenly, a gust of wind blew from the horizon and the sky turned black. The few of them subconsciously raised their heads and saw a huge creature descend from the sky, completely covering the sky. Thunder Cloud Beast. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. It had been a long time since he had seen it. Whiz. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.